Galloway Council. We have a number of important reports to consider this morning, covering important aspects of our communities and their lives in this region. I anticipate we will deal with the business in our usual efficient manner. Members will be aware that there has been some good news for the region recently. We received the long-awaited announcement on the Borderlands Inclusive Growth Deal, funded by both the Scottish and UK governments. I have always said that this will not be a panacea for all the problems the borderland area faces. However, used wisely, aligned with the activities of the forthcoming South of Scotland Enterprise Agency and our own priorities, we can use this funding to promote economic growth across Dumfries and Galloway. Almost a year after the announcement of the closure of Young Spinney's seafood plant in Annan, the site has at last been sold to Bagat Holdings Limited, who hope to start production later this year with the creation of up to 120 jobs. Mr. Bagat had intended to invest in Grimsby and was persuaded by the Action Group to consider Annan instead. And I am very proud of the role officers from Dumfries and Galloway Council played in securing this investment. I believe that it would not have happened without their commitment and hard work. Last week also saw the opening of the Annan Solutions Office, funded through a grant from the South of Scotland Interim Agency, which will provide business advice to new and growing businesses in the DG12 area and will take forward the development of an action plan. At the time the Pinney's closure was announced, we said our aim was to replace all the jobs lost, and we will continue to work to achieve this. On Tuesday night, S5 and S6 pupils from across the region who have taken part in the Young Enterprise Scotland's Company programme came together for the area final. This year saw considerable talent, skill and entrepreneurial spirit from all of the young people who took part. I'm glad to say, because I represent the ward of this school, the school is in, Idiom from Dumfries High School were successful in winning the area finals and will go forward to the Scotland finals, which will be held in Edinburgh at the beginning of June. This is just another example of the fantastic achievements by our young people, and I'm sure the whole chamber will join me in wishing Idiom the best of luck from the Scotland finals. Congratulations must also go to our own Derek Crichton, who on Tuesday night won the award for the Best Advisor. Following today's thought-provoking time for reflection, it is my intention to take item 14, Notice of Motion, Adoption of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance of Working Definition of Anti-Semitism, out of sequence and first on the agenda, which will enable those members of the Jewish community who are attending this morning to listen to the debate without having to listen to the rest of today's proceedings, which I think would be of some comfort possibly to them. Can I also ask members to stay behind at the end of the meeting, as there is to be a presentation recognising Alistair Speedy's retirement as Director of Environment, Economy and Infrastructure at the end of this month, and thanking him for his long years of service to the Council. And can I also say, after the very thought-provoking words from the Rabbi about stirring up of hate and so on, it's to remind councillors that we do have a code of conduct that we should, and that states the way in which we should behave towards each other and the way in which we should behave towards officers of this council. And let's just bear this in mind and treat each other with courtesy, both as councillors and officers, as we go forward. Thanks. We are now. Can we now have the SEDERUNT and any apologies, please, Rona?
Thank you, Leader. We have just one apology this morning from Councillor Tate.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest that members wish to make? Councillor Wood.
It's in item 11 where it makes mention of Food Train. My wife works for Food Train, but I will be staying in as there's no conflict of interest.
Councillor McClelland.
Thank you, Leader. Agenda item number 12, declaring interest. I was involved in the discussions with the scrutiny group, and up until 2 months ago I was involved in various procurement activities.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. Also in respect to item 12, my father's director in a company who's submitted tenders to the Council in the past and will continue to do so in the present, although I'll stay in the room for that item.
Thank you. Any further declarations of interest? Okay, can we move on to the minute of the meeting of 28th of February 2019? And do we want to approve? Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you, Leader. I've got a question over the accuracy of the minute, and I'll just, so I'm absolutely clear, and I've got a motion in the back of this. So it states, and with the motion, so the budget was, it was an item number, it's on page 10, and there was an amendment by myself, seconded by Graham Nichol, I mean, without going through that and rehearsing it all, but what I've wrote here, what I thought I'd read out, which doesn't align to what it said, is that I propose that we don't agree the administration budget and to allow the Conservative group and other groups or members to bring forward a budget or amendments in a week's time. Now, because I haven't had a chance, because of workload, I haven't had a chance to go back, listen and so on and so forth, I would actually move that, if possible, that we actually defer the agreeing of the minute till the next meeting in order to get a chance.
And you feel that that statement is not accurate?
I do. What I just read out is what I wrote, so I don't understand why I haven't actually said that, because it's not what's said within the actual minute. So if that's the case, now it could be right, because things do happen on the day, you change your mind and so on and so forth. In fact, I quite often do that. I can be renowned for doing it. But I think it's, in order for me just to have, because of workload, having had a chance to listen back and so on and so forth, I would challenge the accuracy at this point, but I'd rather just defer it so I can get a chance to come back and do that piece of work, so I'm absolutely clear in my own mind.
I'm content to withdraw the minute and allow members to review. I think there's a process to do that members can suggest what they find inaccurate in the minute, and that we can bring it back at another meeting to reflect a more accurate version of the events. Is that acceptable to members of the council? Okay, grand. Too well, eh? Okay, can we now, is it acceptable to members to move to take item 14 now out of sequence? That's fine. Good. So members are asked to consider the terms of a notice of motion proposed by myself and seconded by the Deputy Leader, Councillor Rob Davidson, as set out in Appendix 1. And I will say a few words at the beginning. In December last year, I was contacted by the Chief Executive of the Jewish Leadership Council requesting that the Council adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's working definition of anti-Semitism and its examples within our Council policies. The definition and examples were officially adopted by the UK Government in December 2016 and subsequently by the devolved governments in Scotland and Wales and by the leadership of the Conservative, Labour, Liberal Democrat, SNP and Plaid Cymru parties. The definition and the examples have also been adopted by the mayors of London, Liverpool City Region and Greater Manchester, and also by more than 150 local authorities across the United Kingdom. Through RONA, we consulted with the local Jewish community who supported this course of action and offered to speak to the Council, hence the Rabbi's contribution for today's time for reflection. Racial and religious bigotry have existed throughout recorded history, and over the centuries the Jewish people have endured the greatest suffering. Anti-Semitism stretches back to the ancient civilizations, and massacres, expulsions and the exclusion of Jews from occupations was rife throughout medieval Europe. Imperialism, the development of the nation state and the concept of white racial superiority engendered many forms of racism, including race-based anti-Semitism. This was responsible for riots and pogroms targeting Jewish people in Europe and Russia, the Nazi anti-Semitic program, and the horror of the Holocaust, when 2/3 of the European Jewish population was slaughtered. Stalin also persecuted the Jewish communities in the USSR, and in later decades of the 20th century, an equation of the plight of the Palestinian people with the anti-imperialist struggle has given rise to a far-left variety of anti-Semitism, which sadly has found expression within the party of which I am a member. The working definition provided by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance is contained in the motion and in section 3.10 of the covering report. This is the definition adopted by the IHRA plenary in Bucharest on the 26th of May 2016. Illustrative examples were also provided as guidance. The examples include the statement, manifestations might include the targeting of the State of Israel conceived as a Jewish collectivity. However, criticism of Israel similar to that levied against any other country cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic. That, I believe, answered the concern that the adoption of the definition and examples would prevent legitimate criticism of the actions of the Israeli government. Racism and bigotry thrive in troubled times, and there is no doubt that we are living in troubled times. Those who wish to gain or maintain power may do so through blaming people of a different cultural, religious, racial or national group for the country's problems. And over the centuries, Jews have frequently been the target of this hate. Sadly, we are currently witnessing a rise in anti-Semitic hate crimes in the UK and across Europe, and even in this town, I'm sad to say. And we know from recent history where this can lead. By bringing this motion to Council today, we are asking you, as elected members, representatives of the people of Dumfries and Galloway, to stand in solidarity with the Jewish community, to state that there is no place in our region for hatred and discrimination based on race or religious belief, and to celebrate the contribution made by our local Jewish community. And I move the motion. Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, Leader. I will be brief. I think that you have indeed said it all. And listening to Rabbi Grunwald, I was rather wondering how I might follow that. So I think I wish simply to pick out 2 points which have already been alluded to. It's perhaps all too easy to look for scapegoats and to achieve or maintain power in a populist way, and by looking for people to blame, whoever they might be. The more difficult times are, perhaps the easier it is for that to happen. We see it happening in many places right across the world at the moment. And the more prevalent that is, the more important it is, I think, that we emphasise the importance of being kind and tolerant. And for me, the fourth bullet point in the actions that this motion suggests that we should take in declaring that hatred of any kind, including anti-Semitism or discrimination against people for their beliefs, has no place in our communities, is to me the heart of the matter. We should treat people fairly and kindly. We occupy positions of authority locally. We have a duty to provide leadership. And so I believe that for all those reasons, this motion is timely and appropriate, and I very much hope that it will be supported unanimously.
Thanks, Councillor Davidson. Can I invite contributions from members? Councillor James.
Good morning, thank you, Chair. Well, I have a lot of respect for both the mover and the shaker of this motion, so, but I'm worried that it's just coming from some pressure above, because it seems inappropriate here locally that we should single out one community for this this special treatment. I'm okay. I have to be convinced that the community want it because we're being told that, but my own contact with Jewish people, I doubt it. The word Semite, I'm unsure about that word. I had a friend in Belgium. Okay, that's maybe a few years ago now, but I talked to him about this, and he told me that Semites are that's a regional definition across there, including Arab peoples. So anti-Semitism, I think the fact that word's being used here is poor, because surely this would be about being anti-Jewish. I mean, why should we be using word legislation here? It smacks of news speak. Liberia is a country, I think, that was created to protect a race. I don't think there was really anything wrong. Is that racist? I don't know. We're getting into semantics rather than Semitics here. And there are other national homelands, non-national homelands around which are created to protect people. So, you know, I think that is a large part of the case of in Israel, and they were subject to racist persecution. And, you know, is it then a bad thing to say that is somewhat a racist endeavour, that place? I'm not qualified to say whether there's really a thing, Zionism. There's people talk about Chinese expansionism. There's also talk of Russian interference, white supremacy. And let's suppose that any one of those is actually a real thing and happening. Surely it's dangerous if we can't even talk about it. And I think there were sincere people in the Labour Party who tried to deal with this issue and tried to go for a sensible definition, and they were just forced into accepting this document, which is a poor document. I'm surprised how bad it was. I thought when I criticised it today, you know, there would be open to criticism. Well, this is written by people better than you, professors and such. But it's just a mess of a document. When we're campaigning, you never know what you're going to hit on the street, and you might knock on a door and hear a voter say something like, well, there's no point in voting for anyone. The whole world's controlled by Jewry. They control the money, they control the media, and then you'll be getting your post ready, and then they might say, well, hi, and you're not even allowed to talk about it. And surely that that doesn't help you rebut that argument when it comes forward. So if there are groups that are being unfairly persecuted and that isn't covered by the law, then the general law needs to change. I don't know that Jewish people want to be singled out for this special preference, but I don't want to support this because, in my opinion, it is discriminatory and it will be counterproductive.
Okay. Councillor Maitland.
Thank you very much. Right, I want to make it perfectly clear that my quarrel's not with the sentiments behind this motion. It's much more concerned with the actual wording of what has been put down here. Amongst those sitting here today are family friends who enriched the lives of those dearest to me and whose contribution is indeed precious. But we've got to the stage now where if somebody voices any form of, is this the right thing to do, we slide into the possibility of being accused of having anti-Semitic sentiments. And that is not in any shape or further, couldn't be further from what I feel. But if we look at the bullet points here, Leader, I have no difficulty at all with the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, and I think that's appropriate. Indeed, we can express concern at the rising number of anti-Semitic hate incidents. I think we can do that too. What do you actually mean by standing foursquare behind Dumfries and Galloway's Jewish community? I'd like to know what that actually means. The wording of declaring that hatred of any kind has no place in our communities actually doesn't make sense. Hatred for unkindness, hatred for cruelty, hatred indeed, arguably, for poor grammar, hatred for lack of clarity and accuracy. The rabbi suggested, and he's absolutely right, that for evil to triumph, all that is needed is for good people to do nothing. And I think it's perfectly all right to say we don't agree with certain parts of this series of motions, while totally agreeing with the sentiments behind it. I think it could have been tidied up. But if you could explain to me what you actually mean and what it means for this council in declaring you stand foursquare, what will that mean? I think that will be helpful for everybody to understand.
I think the motion is actually based on ones which have been passed elsewhere, but that's no particularly excuse for it. In saying we stand foursquare, we stand in solidarity against anti-Semitism. I don't have a difficulty with that, but if you want to suggest a preferable form of words because you don't like that, maybe you'd like to suggest something else?
Well, Leader, I'm happy to listen to what the rest of the chamber wishes to suggest. If it was left to me, I would take out bullet points 3 and 4. I'd simply take those two out because
2.4 and 2.5.
It would be declares it stands. Beg your pardon. On page 337, I'd simply take out. See at the bottom there are bullet points. There are 5 bullet points.
So you want to oppose to recommendation 2.4 and 2.5.
That's right.
Councillor Hislop.
Chair, I maybe misunderstood this. I thought this was on the back of what the rabbi said. This was not just about anti-Semitism. This is how we treat everyone. And it just happens that it's come through the anti-Semitism declaration or definition. Now, I think, on my part, I would like to support that. I wouldn't like to think that anybody feels hatred and has to suffer that. So, standing full square, I'm happy to say that I'll support the Jewish community. I'm happy to say I'll support any community, because I think that's what we should do. We're not here to, yes, it's on the back of one motion, but that, as the rabbi said in his speech, it refers to every race, religion, colour. And we just have to make sure that as a community and as a council, we take that forward across all religions, races, colours, genders, whatever, because I think that's what we need to do, and that is the right thing to do. So I'll support this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Hislop, and I very much agree with you. Indeed, I've asked Rona to ask members of the Islamic community to come to our next full council, but given some of the atrocities that's recently happened to people of the Muslim faith, that I think it's important we hear from our local Muslim community as well. Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Hislop pretty much said all I wanted to say. I think we very quickly lost the sentiment of this motion, and I'd be very happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you, Leader. As Ivor summed up really well, but I think also going back to yourself, what you've said, Rob picked it up. This is about actually it's hatred. I mean, I see what Councillor Maitland's saying in regards to the bullet point 4, but I felt if it was to take out the words of, I can hardly see this, apologise, but declares that anti-Semitism or discrimination against people for their beliefs. It's about actually, with the political environment we're in at the moment as well, it goes away beyond, this is just a starting point really, it goes away beyond anti-Semitism, because some of the behaviours in this actual chambers at times can feel like hatred, and that's something I would like to see stamped out. And I think by agreeing this is a catalyst, which as a group we've discussed it, we're very much in support of. So as a group collectively, the Conservative group actually support this, very much so. There might be a couple of amendments, changes in regards to the wording, if there's a particular point about Semitism, I think. But other than that, this is very much something that should be supported, and it is a catalyst, and it allows us to reflect on ourselves. My wife and I, Karen and I, were fortunate to be in Poland last year in Krakow, and we've seen, we went to opposite the camp that's there, Birkenau, and Auschwitz, sorry, and it was terrible to actually see what hatred, the type of venom and behaviours that can actually lead to people, kind of the way they had to survive, ultimately leading to death. So anything that is a catalyst that helps that kind of behaviour be stamped out and stop it as in early doors should be supported. And I think this is a catalyst. But fair enough, we should have the balance.
Thank you. Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, again in support, and many have said a lot of what I was going to say, but it's on what Rob was saying, and indeed the rabbi, in terms of when he made reference to humanity, and bullet point 4 does encapsulate, declares that hatred of any kind, including anti-Semitism or discrimination against people and their beliefs, has no place in our communities. And we're already witnessing some of the atrocities, not just against the Jewish communities, but the Muslim community as well. And I think any hatred in that sense should be deplored. But you made reference in your support of the motion, Chair, in terms of criticism of Israel can be legitimate, and I think it's important to recognise that as well, and to include that in the motion, because I think there is an important point on that one as well, that we include that, so that we are clear on that. So in support of the motion, I would hope we can include that as well.
Thanks, Councillor Scobie. It is actually in the second paragraph, it says that criticism of Israel can be legitimate, which is a point I think that you're making. Councillor McKee.
Thanks, Chair. I think, as far as I'm concerned, the recommendations at 2.5 declare that hatred of any kind, including anti-Semitism or discrimination against people for their beliefs, as far as I'm concerned, for anything else as well, has no place in our communities. I would like to think I live in a world where I would like to treat people the way I'd like to be treated myself. And if we all had to go down that road, I think it would save a lot of lives and things like that. Some of the things that's going on are totally deplorable. And I appreciate where we're coming from with the anti-Semitism, but I think we should include everybody else as well. Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you. Councillor Blake?
Thank you, Leader. Councillor McKee's actually just said exactly what I was going to say. It's quite clear in the document at bullet point 4 and at 2.5 that yes, today we are concentrating on anti-Semitism, but it very clearly says including, the word including, which incorporates every other type of... Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McComb?
Thanks, Leader. With regard to 2.4, I think it would read far more clearly if we simply had the wording, declare its wholehearted support for Dumfries and Galloway's Jewish community.
Thanks for that.
And
I would accept that.
with regard to 2.5, would it be possible to include people for their race and beliefs?
Indeed, yes, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you, Leader. This subject is quite passionate to myself, funnily enough, as I happen to be in Krakow myself this weekend. I would encourage us as councillors and members of the community to teach our children, show them a fine example as these visits encourage and demonstrate humanity. And I wondered, Leader, if that could be included as another recommendation, because that is the most important thing about our societies, is educating others as to how to demonstrate humanity, which is the word that Councillor Scobie used so perfectly, in my belief. Thank you.
You would like us to add an additional recommendation after 2.5?
Thank you, Leader. Well, that was the word I very much feel was used when I was at Auschwitz this weekend. That was the message that was coming across. And I feel that word is relevant to across all references, across all beliefs. So I think that would be a sensitive word to use, if possible, somewhere in the recommendations. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, any further contributions? Yeah, Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. I'm quite happy with the paper, and if there's additions to that, that's been outlined by other councillors, that's fine. I think this is the paper in front of us is our basics, as far as I'm concerned. It's about this council showing leadership, and that the principles of this council are based on inclusiveness, are based on tolerance, are based on not anti-Semitism, anti-hatred for anybody. So I think that it's encapsulated well within this paper. I'm quite happy to go along with that.
Thanks for that. Okay. Councillor Hagman.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, I would echo the sentiments by others made in this chamber this morning. I think it's crucial that we support everybody in our community, regardless of what their background is. I would just like to have clarity. The proposal to amend 2.5, at present it says declare that hatred of any kind, including anti-Semitism or discrimination. Can I just have clarity as to why we need to expand that? Because I think it's summed up there that we're declaring that hatred of any kind. So I know that there was an additional recommendation to add some words in. Can I just have some clarity on what that would be, please?
I think Councillor McComb's suggestion was it where we say or discrimination against people for their race and beliefs, because anti-Semitism is racial sometimes as well as religious.
I would just point out that for me personally, I think it's actually the simpler phrase of hatred of any kind would actually have more power than adding and this and that, because then we're then into what about gender, what about other issues that may well be brought up. Whereas I feel personally that actually having it simply that we are declaring hatred of any kind would actually be a more powerful statement.
So you would suggest?
I would suggest
removing including anti-Semitism or discrimination.
No. My sentiment is we leave it as it is.
As it is. Okay. Any more? Councillor Campbell, Doogie Campbell.
sad that we see, oh, thank you. It's very sad that we now see reminders of what took place in the 1930s at the present time. So I believe we should all support this motion in full.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Leader. I'm fully behind this motion, and I have to say, I agree with Councillor Hagman insofar as I think it is encompassed in what we have here, what we want to achieve by this, and it by keeping it simple when not highlighting too many different things, I think it actually does give it more power. So I actually agree with it wholeheartedly the way it is.
Okay. Anybody further? So we have a number of recommendations here now. Is there anybody wanting to suggest amendments? Because we've obviously heard that some people are content with the motion as it is. Okay. Councillor Maitland. Councillor Maitland? Or was it Councillor McComb, was it?
Simply with regard, Leader, to 2.5, I still feel that the inclusion of the word race is fully justified.
So, that we shouldn't include race in there? No? Okay, good. Now, was there a suggestion of rewording 2.4 as well?
The replacing standing 4 square by the phrase declare its wholehearted support for Dumfries and Galloway's Jewish community.
Is that... Sorry. Sorry, Councillor Ronnie.
Could we ask, thank you, Leader, could we ask the Rabbi to write the motion for us, because it's clearly considerably more eloquent than the rest of us put together.
Indeed. Councillor Surtees.
Actually, I think that's a really good idea. I'd like to support the change of words for 2.4. I think that's a really passionate and powerful statement, the suggested amendment. However, I'd stand by the 2.5. I think it should stay as it is. It's incredibly powerful. I will support Councillor Hagman on that, and I'm wholeheartedly behind this motion, and I think it's been said.
Okay, I think there is an agreement, I think, to change the wording of 2.4 to declare our wholehearted support for Dumfries and Galloway's Jewish community. We're content with that? Okay. There's not agreement on whether or not race should be included in... No, people want to leave it as it is? Okay, we'll leave it as it is. Right, okay. In that case, we'll move to the recommendations. I think we've already considered the notice of motion. Are we in agreement to adopt the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism? Okay. Do we agree to express concern at the rising number of anti-Semitic hate crimes in the UK? And can I say I learned this morning that there have been 4 in the town of Dumfries, which is appalling, really. So, okay. And we now want to declare our wholehearted support for Dumfries and Galloway's Jewish community in 2.4. 2.5, we're content to accept that as it is, yes. And 2 points, recommendation 6 is to celebrate the contribution of the Jewish community. Okay, thanks very much for that, and thanks to our visitors for sitting in. Thank you. Okay, if we can move. Let's give people another couple of minutes to come out. Thanks very much. If we can move on to agenda item 4, please, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. This report provides us with a summary of the highlights of Dumfries and Galloway's 200 Year of Young People 2018, a programme which focused on celebrating the personalities, talents and achievements of young people in Dumfries and Galloway and showcasing the best of our area to young people across Scotland. The report also provides members with details of the legacy plans to ensure that the year was a catalyst for refocusing the lens on our young people. Our local Year of Young People celebrations won cross-party praise during a debate in the Scottish Parliament, and I'm grateful to our local MSPs for drawing national attention to the superb programme of events, activities and ideas which ran across the region throughout 2018. A programme devised by local young people and supported by over 30 organisations, including our own council. Despite being a few decades too old to be eligible to attend the events, I was very fortunate to be invited to a number of them and was quite blown away by the talent and organisation ability on display by our young people. And as a region, we should be extremely proud of them. One thing, however, I will not be sorry to say, not to see again, is that video with my ugly mug in it. It would seem to follow me around to almost every event I attended. I hope it's not going to be the one that we see today. Can I also say, this is a lovely memento. Normally I throw the papers away from the council when it's finished, but I'm going to hang on to this lovely memento of last year. Mark Malloy is here to assist if members have any questions. Once we agree to take the presentation, I shall welcome our young people to give a presentation to us. But Mark, have you got any points? Have people any questions for Mark before the young people speak? Okay. In that case, we agreed to receive a presentation from our young people. Yeah, grand. So I've now welcome 3 volunteers, Lauren Asher, Emily Davis and Sophie Blair, who are here to provide us with a presentation about this very successful programme.
Good morning, members of Dumfries and Galloway Council. I'm Emily Davis, member of the Scottish Youth Parliament for Dumfriesshire, and we are delighted to be here this morning to present the Year of Young People report, along with a small insight into the impact last year had on young people across the region. In Dumfries and Galloway, young people participated in national events and programmes out with our authority. We hosted national events ourselves, and we created local opportunities, experiences and community activities for our young people. From 2,000 young people attending the opening event at Gallowbank Football Stadium in Annan, to the entire Scottish Youth Parliament meeting in Stranraer, 2018 saw young people in our region completely hijack our Moving Forward Together event to design and deliver training to professionals looking at issues that matter to them the most. With over 36,000 people attending over the weekend, Youth Beats had a massive impact on young people, with 95% of them saying they felt their self-esteem had increased, and with an economic impact of £495,541. In addition, there was over 3,100 young people who went through the Toon interactive drama production. Year of Young People allowed the three of us here presenting today to grow personally, with our confidence increasing beyond our imaginations, but also professionally for Lorna and myself as we took up roles as apprentices within the youth work services. What an amazing experience it has been to work and take part as young people, but to see the volume of work that goes into events and grassroots programmes is truly mesmerising. Sophie and I also worked together on several occasions to host events throughout the year, and this was instrumental to developing our public speaking skills. It is rather hard to express the opportunities and experiences that I was able to take part in last year. As an outgoing member of the Scottish Youth Parliament, being able to showcase our region to guests, Youth Parliament members and other national colleagues was incredible. Debating vital policies for young people, electing a new board and ensuring the organisation is the best it can be for future MSYPs, the Scottish Youth Parliament sitting in Stranraer was incredible. The National LGBT Youth Gathering was by far my favourite signature event throughout the year. It gave young people a place to feel safe and a security to be who they wanted to be. As a young person who came out in 2017, being in a room full of people who didn't question who you were, young people who only wanted equality and to have an enjoyable educational weekend, was phenomenal. Besides the signature events, I was very fortunate to represent the UK at the Global Youth Trends Forum in Taiwan, discussing sustainable development goals in October last year. We were able to also present our Year of Young People plan and youth participation strategy to the Vice President and Minister of Education in Taiwan, which was an experience I will never forget. I would now like to pass to Sophie, who will continue to explore the impact that Year of Young People has had.
Thank you, Emily. I'm Sophie Blair and I'm a Year of the Young Person champion. And 2018 was an amazing year for me and all young people across Dumfries and Galloway and the rest of Scotland. Although I think as a region we definitely nailed it. There was a huge range of different activities and opportunities for young people of all ages to get involved in, and at so many levels, either as a participant in an activity or an event, as a young person speaking out and saying what they wanted to see happen, as a young leader helping out at events, or being a part of the team that worked alongside the strategic group to co-produce the whole year. For me, the highlight of 2018 was 100% Moving Forward Together, the event held in Newton Stewart. This was when young people were genuinely handed the reins and were trusted to organise an event for over 100 young people and youth workers where they could share experiences, learn new skills, take inspiration and motivation from each other. I was a part of the team of young people who delivered this event. We had ownership over every single aspect from the day, the time, the workshops, right down to the flavour of soup at lunch. It made us feel valued, respected, and like we had really achieved something positive for youth work going forward. This is like many of the experiences I had last year, and I'm looking forward to continuing support and influence services for young people in the future. Before Year of the Young Person, I was a completely different young person. I was shy, I kept to myself, and I would not be sitting here today if it wasn't for Year of the Young People. Last year completely changed my life, helped me find my confidence, it helped me work in a team and speak in public, and I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for Year of the Young People. I will now pass you over to Lauren. Thank you.
Thank you to both Emily and Sophie for sharing their Year of Young People highlights. My name is Lauren Asher and I am a member of the Year of Young People project team and the communicating representative for Dumfries and Galloway. For me, Year of Young People was more than a year. It was a journey over several years that has helped me to grow and develop into the person I am today. When I first got involved in Year of Young People, it was March 2017 and I was a shy 17-year-old teenager who was trying to find her feet. And here I am 2 years later, after what I can only describe as a totally crazy journey. Year of Young People was all about providing new opportunities and allowing young people to grow, develop and thrive in their environments. I can say with complete confidence this is something Dumfries and Galloway excelled at. Whether that was through national events that we held or the smaller grassroots programmes that supported some of the most vulnerable young people in our communities, Dumfries and Galloway provided us with the chance to thrive. 2018 from start to finish was filled to the brim with experiences and opportunities that coming from rural Scotland we could only dream of, all of which enabled us to discover who we really are. At the heart of Year of Young People in Dumfries and Galloway was a dedicated, determined and invaluable staff team of award-winning youth workers who did not stop for 12 months straight to ensure that 2018 was a year young people would never forget. They worked alongside the Youth Project team, a group I am honoured to say I was part of, treating them as equal partners in the design process and ensuring that 2018 was a year where our region refocused the lens on its young people. Personally, Year of Young People 2018 was nothing short of a life-changing experience. I honestly don't know where I would be now had I not taken part. It gave me a voice, a safe space and a sense of value and worth that I'd been missing for a very long time. It enabled me to see that I was worth something, that I mattered, and that life was worth a shot. It taught me that regardless of my disability or what was going on in my personal life, I could do anything that I set my mind to. 2018 provided me with so many opportunities, and for that I will always be thankful. Through Year of Young People, I have become so much more confident, and I feel a lot more positive about my future as a result. My Year of Young People story is not unique. This year has given so many young people a voice and the ability to see that people wanted to listen to what they had to say, and that is the true achievement of the year, and will be the legacy for years to come. We are going to show you a short film which will give you a quick snapshot over the year as a whole, and some more information about the impact of the year, following which we would take any questions.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. You've certainly demonstrated your public speaking skills here today, possibly put the rest of us to shame, I think. But could I now open this up to questions and debate, and I'll call Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. But I think, first of all, our thanks have to go to Emily, Sophie and Lauren for that fantastic presentation. But, you know, not just thanks for that presentation, but for the work that particularly Emily, Sophie and Lauren put into the whole year. I saw them at a number of events. It's very fair to say that the Year of Young People plan that was approved at Civil Committee in late 2017 was bold and ambitious. And as we've heard today, that plan was indeed successful and one of the best in Scotland. It says in 3.4.3 of the report today that this plan cost just over £500,000, with about a fifth of that being contributed from this council. I think it's fair to say that's a significant amount of funding, but it's been a significant and successful investment in our young people and worth every penny. We can't just thank, we can thank the young people who've made this Year of Young People successful. I was privileged to join them in the majority of signature events and a number of smaller events during the year. And over the whole of last year, at every event, I continue to be in awe of each and every one of our young people's talents and their commitment that they've shown to the year. And I think, as Lauren highlighted, I would like to see the recommendations strengthened just slightly to recognise the hard work of our youth work staff and the hundreds of hours put in by volunteers of all ages who made the year successful. And one example I would like to give, because I see that Laura Kilty is in the audience, talking to youth work staff at the end of, coming up to the end of Youth Beats, I had went and was catching up with Laura, who had spent her weekend, or 2 weeks I should say, camping at Youth Beats and had made over 2,000 rolls to feed staff and volunteers. I just think it's a good symbolism of the energies and dedication of our youth work staff over the whole year and continuing to this day. So in addition to commending the work of our young volunteers who have been an absolute inspiration, I would like to suggest that we just strengthen recommendation 2.3 to also commend the work of our youth work staff and the invaluable contribution put in by volunteers of all ages over the whole year. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, Leader. You're certainly very happy to second that amendment to the recommendations. And thank you in particular to Emily, Sophie and Lauren for the presentation and putting my public speaking skills to shame yet again. At the second time today, I'm thinking, how do you follow that? So it is important that we just take a moment and reflect on the year that has been such an obvious, massive success and celebrate the efforts and the commitment and dedication of staff and volunteers who really made it, I would say, and I guess I would say it, but in my opinion, the best in Scotland. And it's important to do that because we shouldn't just say that was a Year of Young People and that's it, finished, and thank you all very much. The legacy and what happens next, I think, is just as important as the fact that we did a really good Year of Young People. And I look at what's set out here and under 3.5, 10,000 voices that we'll come on to in a subsequent report. Youth Council, continuing with Youth Beats and the Tune, the Dumfries and Galloway Youth Awards. I mean, all of this, I think, is absolutely fundamental. It's really important that we're able to continue these things because the really important thing, in my view, about Year of Young People was not simply that it had to be really good in and of itself, and it certainly has been, but it's also a question of what you do with it next, and what we do with the energy and enthusiasm, and I guess the real growth and development that lots and lots of folk experience during the course of the year. So I think as important as celebrating what's happened is looking forward to what we can do next. And I know there's a subsequent report that perhaps we'll get into that in further detail. I would simply like to close, therefore, by repeating my thanks and appreciation for everybody who's involved in delivering a really fantastic event for young people and for the whole region.
Thank you. Councillor Ronnie.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to say congratulations to Emily, Sophie and Lauren, and to Mark and his team, unsung heroes in the background that we hear of. But whilst tolerance is the order of the day today, and we spend an awful lot of time falling out in here, I would like to say well done to Councillor Wilson for the stellar job that he did.
Thank you, Councillor Roddy. Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, I would like to echo the sentiments expressed by Adam to Emily, Sophie and Laura in their presentation made with such confidence. And it is for the Council to look at what we can do for the youths of the whole of Dumfries and Galloway. And indeed I paid tribute to Ronnie Nicholson as leader of the Council when he made available the £500,000 for accessible play parks. And it's undoubtedly the case that Stair Park and the accessible play park has paid tremendous benefit to not only disabled kids, but kids across the whole of Stranraer and outlying areas. So, it's that kind of contribution that we should look for. But I look at, a police report this week, highlighted front page in the Free Press, that talks of mobs of youth causing mayhem through drink or drugs in Stranraer. And I remember questioning the Chief Inspector on that, whether indeed this had anything to do with austerity, cuts in public services, not enough police on the beat, and he said that they had adequate numbers. But I also quote from an ex-councillor, Alex Sloan, who always made the statement, as a hotelier, that you could sell 99 good meals, and that one bad meal carries more publicity and weight than the whole 99. So I think, and again to quote Jeremy Corbyn, it's for the many and not the few. And I look at 3.5.1, and it's really a question of the young people and Mark, who's doing a tremendous job. And it talks about the delivery services that best meet the needs of the young people and the communities. And I know that Colin Smythe, the MSP, is trying to get free travel for youths through the Parliament. But is there anything that we can be doing from the youths that would counteract or provide for young people where they manifestly, see that they can cause mayhem? And I'm talking about for the many, not the few, that do that. So is there anything that you would suggest that we could be as a council looking at how we can provide for our youths rather than the distractions that we are seeing, at least in Stranraer? And I believe it could be throughout the whole region.
Thank you, Mark. Do you want to comment on that?
I think Councillor Murray, one of the young people, want to answer that, and then I can follow.
I think especially highlighted throughout the year young people, and as mentioned by some of the councillors, that Youth Work Services do a lot of work in order to keep in young people in safe environments and doing work with them every year, not just last year. And I think by the council continuing to support Youth Work Services, that's what's fundamental to keeping our young people in a safe environment and to have that security of informal education and in a safe space. Mark.
Thank you.
Probably just in the specifics of Councillor Scobie's comments is that within the Youth Work Service, we're acutely aware of some of the antisocial behaviour issues that go on in different communities across the region. And just a couple of months ago, we put in place a specific staff team that is going to be targeting some of the areas and the hotspot in terms of that social behaviour. What I would say though is that sometimes there is a perception issue with some of this. Some of the young people absolutely have the right to congregate as part of their rights in terms of within communities. However, what it's important is that as a service, young people are respectful of that wider community that they're in, and we're doing some good work in Kirkcudbright, for example, around that, and also about to start some work in Stranraer as well. So I think it's getting a balance as a service between young people's rights, as we would have all done when we were younger, of congregating with friends in the street, but at the same time using some of our staff to implement a specific course of action where that could support in the multi-agency approach, working alongside communities.
Do you want to come back?
Yeah, Chair, and it wasn't a criticism of the youths in the many. It's how some can cause, spread the bad message. Because I do remember another ex-councillor in this chamber who actually, at one time requested that we put sprinklers in every corner to disperse the congregation, and thank God we didn't support that. Because I think youths have the right, and they do, as demonstrated here, they do so much good. But my question was directed. I'm pleased to hear Mark say that there will be some concentrated work with the youths, and we should be available to make sure that we make the services available that they want, rather than what we saw in terms of some of the places we are closing down, reducing in the number of youth workers. So we can look at, add it that, we should be supporting the youth.
A lot of people wanting to speak now. Councillor Giusti.
Thank you, Chair. The Year of Young People in Dumfries and Galloway was an awesome display of our region's strengths and assets, our assets being our young people. As for videos, Leader, we got a clean break, Adam and I. There's a video out there on the internet of us dancing the Macarena with the DVRs. Now, I'm glad that has not surfaced today. I would certainly agree that Mark Malloy and his youth services did indeed nail it, to quote the lassies over there. I believe that the Year of Young People will prove to be a catalyst in growing confidence and ambitions amongst our youths in D&G. And I think Adam was reading my screen when he proposed that we strengthen the recommendations, because I was going to add a proposal to commend our youth work team for their spectacular work and commitment.
Thank you. Councillor Maitland?
I tell you something which makes me very, very happy, which is to see young women growing in confidence, and we've seen that in the chamber today, so well done. Go on, girls. I'm interested in the economic impact, which was on page 101, and I think we ought to hang on to that with respect to the Youth Beats project. It's $500,000, which was another figure shown, $500,000 elsewhere, about the costs. And I think that's helpful and useful, and we should remember to consider that when every penny counts, Leader, at the moment. I also want to commend the inclusive atmosphere that this project across the year got. Everybody seemed to be having fun. Everybody was involved, absolutely right across, in terms of age groups, any sort of people. And I went to the Twynham, Duke of Edinburgh, where they had practically been blown away, I think, into Ireland, and they were fantastic. They were absolutely totally together, and I will say that we saw young leaders there who I suspect probably we will see a bit of in the future. But in the meantime, congratulations. I add my thoughts and congratulations to the staff who really did facilitate this and raised Dumfries and Galloway's profile nationally, which is extremely important. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson? Councillor Marshall?
Yeah, just to echo the sentiments. Thanks to Mark and his team, and Emily, Sophie and Lauren for the excellent document, but also the presentation you done today, and also the video. It's about actually asking questions as well, so I would like, because the girls are here today, is to ask them as well. One thing that we've been criticised for
over a number of years. I think you nailed it for Year of Young People, but you also nail it every year for youth beats. But how do you feel? Because at times you'll see in social media, letters in the local newspapers, and even in this chamber, there isn't wholehearted support for that. And it's thanks to Nistdale Area Committee that funds part of that, and to the full council. But what would you say to the people that don't fully support Youth Beats? Because I think it's an excellent event. The company I work for have sponsored it for over 10 years. When you go and see the tune and the forerunners before that, that is absolutely fantastic. So now's your opportunity to say to people, maybe in this chamber, but also the wider community in Dumfries and Galloway, why Youth Beats is such a success.
So I think for me, Youth Beats has always played a very important role in my life. So in 2016, I got involved in the tune from a drama perspective. I'd never engaged with youth work services before, but I was a very vulnerable young person at the time, and through getting involved with Youth Beats and the tune specifically, that is how I'm still here today. And I think that you can never underestimate the impact that the work at Youth Beats has on individual young people. I know so many of my peers have had similar experiences of being in a very vulnerable situation, and through the information they've gained at Youth Beats or the experience they've had, they've then gone on to engage with youth work services, which has had a massive impact on their life. And I think that through supporting Youth Beats, you're investing and ensuring that young people in Dumfries and Galloway are supported and safe.
Thank you. Councillor Drybrow.
Thanks very much, Chair, and echo what all of the members have said so far, and it was a fantastic year actually seeing, our young people moving forward and potentially being the politicians of the future. As Jane mentioned, hopefully we'll see some of you in this chamber in future years. I think what I've seen in Dumfries and Galloway, certainly in my role as Adam's opposite as the Armed Forces champion, is our young people in the uniformed organisations, the way that they have, actually moved forward in representing Dumfries and Galloway at a national level as well. And the one criticism I would have of the report is, I should have talked to Mark earlier on and said maybe we should have put something in about the cadet forces and the uniformed organisations that do quite a lot in our areas for charities as well as themselves. But that's not taken away from what the Year of the Young People actually did. I think coming back to what Jane said about the empowerment of our young women and female, I'd just like to say that 60% of the cadets that are actually going to represent Dumfries and Galloway at the sporting events and the military events up and down the country are actually female cadets, and I'm proud to be associated with them. But this Year of the Young People has shown Dumfries and Galloway in its true light, and the staff, and especially Mark, because I know Mark sometimes has sleepless nights thinking about how he actually moves forward with the youth service. It's been a fantastic year. Well done to everybody, not just those who helped and assisted, but those who attended events as well. We can't forget that they will pick up some wonderful skills just by attending those events, and hopefully it will encourage them to get involved in later years.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholl.
Thank you, Leader. It's quite easy to criticise the young, and the press really do enjoy it because it gives them a headline, it gives them something to jump up and down about. But we've seen a presentation here today, we've heard of all the good work that's being done, the Year of the Young People, and on top of it, to emphasise that or to back that up, I had the privilege of being at the Wigton Sports Council Awards ceremony last Friday night, where I think I could best be described as producing a moderate vote of thanks with tongue in cheek. But the achievements of those young, most of the people there were young, and the achievements of those people, it broadens their horizons, it gives them greater perspective of life, they meet different people, and we're very easy to criticise, but we should be applauding these people. And there are some that do deserve criticism, but the bulk of them are good people, and it's great to see the achievements of these people. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Howie. Sorry. Councillor Little.
Thank you, Leader. I'm absolutely always blown away by our region's young people. Now, it's very easy to make this about this good news story into a bad news story and bring some negative comments, but it's not just about the big shiny events that we have here. It's great what happened in the past year. We have an ageing population, and we're always trying to keep our young people in the region, so to give them positive life experiences while they're growing up. And as Lauren had said, feelings of value and giving them opportunities. They're the future of our region, and the past year, I hope that we've shown them exactly how important they are to us, and the fact that we have a dedicated youth service team within our council who prioritise our young people, who put them at the top of the list for the future, makes me feel very, very grateful to all the work and very, very proud.
Thank you. Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you, Leader. I commend Councillor Malloy and the Youth Beats team, and specifically the girls here today. What an excellent presentation, girls. The youth workers team in Kirkcudbright are currently doing an absolutely fantastic job, and they've helped Councillor Maton, Councillor Campbell and myself out because we've had some negative publicity with the youths, and that has been slightly unfair on occasion. However, we must take into account that the teams today in our more rural areas, whilst they accept and embrace the youth beats and all the other fantastic opportunities, we must consider to continue to look at providing inside spaces, specifically during the winter, as gathering spaces. This is the feedback I get a lot from the youths in Ward 3. They feel really devastated that there is nowhere to hang out, and hence we do have this problem of people hanging around, youth hanging around in the streets with nothing to do. I'd be really interested to hear today, girls, what your thoughts would be and feedback I've been having, as well as Councillor Maitland and Councillor Campbell, on things like, things similar to what we used to have. Now we're the old middle-aged group. When I was younger, we had discos in council halls, and for the under 18s, would something like a silent disco, which is very fashionable, be something of interest to yourselves? Thank you, Leader.
So quite recently we've had like the I'm a Raver event in Dumfries, and there's also one in Newton Stewart very soon. But as you said about like the silent disco, like I think quite a lot of young people have seen that, like videos on Facebook of clubs in Ibiza and everybody's getting really excited, and like something like that I reckon would absolutely would 100% interest young people, especially within rural areas. I'm not from Dumfries, I live in Annan, so again, like I'm hearing the feedback you guys are hearing, like there's like once a week we're having a youth group, but then there's during like every other day of the week there's youths running about the hall that we are using, and then like the caretakers and stuff are coming back to the youth workers and saying, oh, your young people are running about, but that's something that we can't, like obviously we don't have the facilities to run youth groups every day during the week. So like something like that, and maybe not in like Dumfries, but in a rural area, so Kirkcudbright or Annan, Gretna, anywhere, just to bring all the young people together. I genuinely think that would be an awesome idea.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, girls, for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think somebody needs to explain to me what a silent disco is. Councillor McKee.
Hi, thanks, Chair. I think it was good to listen to the last of the presentation this morning. It's quite moving, actually. We don't always understand just the effect that this sort of work has on them. And regarding Councillor Marshall's comments on the finance, hopefully there'll be a number of people sitting in this chamber today realising that the finance we have put into Youth Beats over the years has certainly paid dividends. We're not just looking at Dumfries, we're looking at Dumfries and Galloway as a whole, and that's the way it should be, and long may it continue. Thank you very much for all that. It's a pleasure meeting these youngsters, and the job they're doing, I think we don't always recognise the amount of time they put into it. But one thing I would ask councillors to maybe put themselves forward for, and volunteer to go, is to go to some presentations of our tune, and they'll learn a lot from going through there. And I think that'd be very worthwhile. Thanks, Leader.
Thanks. Certainly very worthwhile production for councillors to attend. Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Leader, and congratulations to Mark and his team, and Adam for, I know, has been a very busy and hectic year, and I fully support Youth Beats on record. I suspect most councillors do. With my fascination for pay and minimum wages and what have you at the moment, which I'm mildly obsessed with, I do wonder if we need to be a little bit more transparent about the contribution hours in kind that we've stated in here. I suspect that the 119,215 that's been quoted would work out about £12 an hour, which is almost double what an 18 to 20-year-old would be getting as a minimum wage. So I think the figures could be a little bit more transparent. I don't doubt the number of volunteer hours that have been given as 9,900 quoted here, but to reach the 120,000 figure, that means that they would be getting paid £12 an hour, and I'm not sure that that's a true reflection of the volunteer in kind work. The other thing that I'd just like to go into, because we've said a lot about talented young ladies in the room with us today, the stats via social media are indicating that it's working out about 2/3 female and 1/3 male as being either interested through social media on all feeds, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And I find that slightly worrying when we know that a lot of our young men in the region are the ones that are maybe more susceptible to mental health issues. And why are we not attracting them even onto the social media forums, let alone into the event? And I think that that's really useful information that Mark can hopefully pick up, and the teams that put these events together, to try and maybe make them a little bit more gender balanced in their appeal. Because I know that it's certainly difficult to get young lads and young men to attend events like this, and it would be interesting to understand why. But the social media stats are really showing that we have a predominance towards female interest and not male. And I think that that's one thing that we really should be latching on to. Thank you.
Mark, do you want to make any comment on Councillor McGregor's points?
Yeah, so certainly in terms of the social media engagement, I think part of that's probably because of around 3 years ago when we had went to a standalone youth service. One of the things that we noticed at that point was that the service was predominantly engaging with young males, and we'd done a particular focus in terms of the need to have a greater offer that was attractive to young females to access. So I think what you're seeing actually is as a result of that shift in focus is what we're getting at that point. And certainly in terms of the volunteer hours, I'll certainly take that back, and I'll be able to provide clarity in that, because that was using a national matrix that Volunteer Scotland has in terms of how events calculate the volunteer time, and I think it takes into consideration in terms of the equivalent of on costs for staff through that, but it's certainly using a national framework for how that was calculated, but I can get a further breakdown for that for Councillor McGregor.
So on that basis, it's probably using a national over 25 framework as opposed to a youth framework. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further... Oh, sorry, Councillor Surtees.
Thank you, Leader. I just want to commend everybody. I really had a ball last year, and I'm not at all young anymore, but I feel young, and you certainly helped me to feel young. I wish some of the events and things that were happening had happened when I was young, particularly the LGBT gathering. That would have been awesome, and it would have changed my life, no doubt about it. So, and I do think the shiny, fantastic events, if we concentrate on the events themselves, it's listening to these young women today about how they've grown and expanded their lives through those experiences. But my question really, or my comment, is about how we as councillors can continue with the legacy of young people in Dumfries and Galloway. And I've been to many, many community council meetings, and I'm sure my fellow councillors have too, where they're asking, how can we engage with young people? How can we get young people involved in community councils? There's such a lot of exciting development work going on with asset transfers and opportunities to work really locally as well as globally. So really, I'd like to have the chance to talk to Mark sometime and the group about how we can maybe get young people involved in community councils.
Thank you. Any?
I think just on that, sorry Emily, I'll let Emily go first. I would not like to.
I think, as you were saying, with the legacy and councillors being able to support the continued support of the Youth Work Service is obviously overarching all the legacy of the Year of Young People. But in particular, you'll hear Mark report on the 10,000 Voices report in the next agenda item, but also the continuation and the support that has recently been given to Youth Beats and the tune production, along with the introduction of our new Youth Council, which we'll find out. The elections have been taking place over the last 2 weeks, and the results event will be on Monday, but this will also be able to have representatives not only from each of the ward areas to replicate the council here today, but in a youth capacity, but also it'll be able to it'll have nominated representatives from 7 minority groups that will be able to further enhance the relationship, hopefully, with the council and the youth council. So that, along with the youth awards and being able to highlight the young people's talents and showcase the brilliant work that they do every year will be incredible.
Thank you. Mark, do you have anything to add?
No, I think she answered that much better than me.
Can we now progress to the recommendations? We've already agreed to have the presentation. We're happy to note the positive evaluation of the year. Great. Then we wanted to commend, third one is to commend the work of the young volunteers, but we were going to add something at the end of that, saying to commend our youth work team for their spectacular work, dedication and commitment. Are we happy to do that as amended?
I think just to commend our youth work staff, but also the hundreds of hours that adults and volunteers of all ages contribute to these.
Yeah. So be commending the youth work staff and the other adult volunteers. Okay, so we're happy to do that. And then me noting the legacy plan and moving on to agenda item 5, which is really a continuation. It's a 1,000 Voices report, which I have to say, I think I'm sure everybody found extremely interesting, as in terms of the analysis of our own wards and what young people in our own wards are thinking. Emily just reminded us that the results of the Youth Council elections and the MSYP elections will be declared on Monday evening, 5:30 at the Bridge. And personally, I'm looking forward to meeting the 2 new elected representatives for our Nith ward, and I hope that councillors will be able to support the newly elected representatives across the region. And I'm also very much looking forward to the meeting between the full council and the youth council, which is due to take place later in the year, and I think that will be an extremely interesting event. So I'm very much hoping that councillors are going to agree to that. I don't seem to have the notes. Mark, is it Mark speaking to this again? Or? Okay. Yeah, so can I open up to members' debate, and Councillor Wilson wants to speak. I think Mark will again take any questions from us.
Thanks, Lida. And following on from the last item, thank you to those councillors who sort of mentioned my name. I had a ball last year, so it was a pleasure to be involved. I think that this report contains a significant piece of work, and it's my understanding it's the largest consultation of young people ever to have taken place in this region. And I think that thanks to the report that's in front of us, we have a unique opportunity to understand the views of our young people living here. And I think that there's a fact in it that makes it more important than ever to make sure that we actually listen and deliver for our young people. On page 118, it says that 55% of our young people do not intend to stay in Dumfries and Galloway in future, with work, travel and studying being the reasons for them intending to leave. And I understand that, I went through it many times myself. You think you might leave, you think you might come back, and you sway. But the fact that over half of our young people are thinking that they will leave the region after studying at school and may not come back, I think is a worrying fact. And I think that for that reason, this report and the young people who have been consulted in this report really do fire a warning shot for us. If we lose the majority of our young people, the issues that our region faces at the moment with a recruitment crisis in the public sector, but also in our professional private companies, that will only get worse. We will have a crisis in social care if we lose the majority of our young people to elsewhere. So I think that there's a warning shot that's been fired by young people here. And I think that we as a council have to take stock and appreciate, and how can we make the changes that are required to ensure that that doesn't happen. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with young people leaving the region. I left and came back. Many of my friends are now doing the same. But it's also about how do we attract more young people to come and study here and to work here and make Dumfries and Galloway a better place. I think that at the last full council where we considered a motion by Councillor Campbell, we took the absolute right action. Unfortunately, it was limited action that we could take to ensure that our public services, to ensure that our local businesses receive some protection from the potential immigration rule changes. And I think that it's imperative on this council to make the changes that are required to respond to this report. And I think that this isn't the last we'll see of this report. I think the Youth Council will spend a significant amount of time trying to make those changes. But I think that there is a warning shot in here for us. And now we do need to make the changes to make sure that young people do want to stay here, that we support our businesses and the public sector and continue to make Dumfries and Galloway just that great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dougie Campbell.
Thank you, Leader. Pretty much picking up on the points that Councillor Wilson was making there. But I'm particularly worried about the Galloway wards in terms of young people who intend on staying in Dumfries and Galloway. In wards 2, 3 and 4, for example, it's only in the region of 20+%. We've got a declining population in Dumfries and Galloway. The birth rate is dropping. We've got an ageing population, and many of our young people want to leave the region. Hopefully, they will come back. And I think this exercise that's been carried out is fantastic and is an excellent basis for us to move forward on with the 5-year action plan, because I think we need to be mindful that we've raised expectations and we need to very much deliver on that. But I would ask, when it comes to looking at what we do in response to the survey, that there is some focus on the Galloway wards in terms of why so many of our young people want to leave, what we can do to address that. And it's also interesting as well, we'll go on the next agenda item to look at our obligations under the Equality Act, and many of the outcomes of that relate to our young people. So it's something that, as a council, we very much have to focus on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Hagman.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I think, I don't want to go over what other people have already said. The team have been incredible over the last year, and the presentations from the 3 young women here today has been great. I also want to reiterate what my colleague Councillor Little said in terms of it's not all just about the big events, it's about the youth team as a whole and what they offer our region. And I think moving forward, I'm genuinely really excited about having a youth council coming forward. I can't wait to actually meet the team and move forward with that. I feel that they are going to possibly shine a way forward for us councillors here as well, and that's highlighted on point 3.7 on page 109, which says that they will formally meet using council chambers or with online virtual meeting, and relevant officers and members will be invited to meetings. Can we please, this would be brilliant for you guys to trial this, can you feed back to us as to how to do it? Because it's something that we've been asking for. Certainly, I regularly call into group meetings via Skype, and we're trying really hard to get that pushed forward. So, yeah, it's great that you're taking that forward, and I'll really look forward to the feedback coming forward. The only other thing I would request is that we look at ways that you can feed back to us as to what you want from us and how we can support you and how we can support you. You know, it needs to be a two-way situation, but thank you.
Thank you. Councillor James?
Thank you, Chair. On the methodology, I'm not really convinced that 10 to 25 is an age range that's a good idea to study. It's just too big a range, and the methodology doesn't say how well. It alludes to the determining of the issues and the ranking of them, but in a way that I wouldn't have any confidence in that being useful information. And looking at the actual results out of those two, I wouldn't want to base any policy on those. However, the questions, there are some. I think they are good. I'll come to them in a minute. But coming back to the region, that question could have been better framed. But the way to attract people back to the region would surely be to actually give them things to do here and give them careers here. And then I think we need to concentrate on building an economy to do that. Otherwise, why should we try to persuade them to stay here? But going to the questions, flicking through, I find that Castle Douglas and Crockett Ford did exceptionally well. Satisfaction rates are tremendous, and I would like to congratulate Councillor Howie and Councillor John Young for their achievements. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McKee.
Hi, thanks, Chair. I'd just like to say thank you very much to all the youngsters in North West Dumfries. We've got more youngsters from there than from anywhere else. Now, my concern is talking about youngsters staying here. I always had the view that youngsters need to go out to the region, but they've got to remember to come back, because they've got to get life experience of other areas, which can be different for Dumfries and Galloway. But once they go away, that's the difficulties getting them back, and I quite appreciate where you're coming from. But I don't know how you'd overcome that, but we need to, I suppose, encourage them to come back for life jobs for life type of thing, and that sort of thing. But I'm certainly pleased with the response you got from North West Dumfries, and it was fairly positive on the whole. But I'd just like to see more of them coming back. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks very much, Leader. Just to build on a wee bit of what Jock's just said there, and maybe to take issue a wee bit with my learned colleague from Kirkcudbright. Ward 6 had 75% want to leave as well, so it's not a rural issue, it's a whole region issue. So we're going to have to look here, but what I'm particularly keen to see here is that this was a traditionally hard-to-reach community who we've got through to them one way. I don't know how it's been done, but we've got through, and we've got a much better reaction than we've had in the recent past. And I think for me, the themes that run all the way through this from every ward are why do you not intend to stay? Because A, they want to travel, B, they want to go for work or study. Now, the study one worries me to a certain extent, given that we've now got, I think it's 3 universities in the campus here, or at least 2 universities and a college that awards degrees. So I think that what should come out of this is how do we incorporate this into our work plans for the departments, just to make sure this is meaningful, because this can't get parked on a shelf and then forgotten about. It's too big, it's too important, and I think we need to take this on board straight away, and the quicker I would suggest, the better. So I know it's in part of the recommendations, and I'm stressing that
that needs to be highlighted how the outcome of this survey should be built into all the plans of all the departments in the council. Thank you.
I'm sure the Youth Council, when they're elected, will not allow us to forget about the concerns of young people. Andrew Ducey.
Thank you, Leader. I'm just quite interested in the Stranraer results here. I've got them in front of me. 52% of Stranraer youths want to stay in D&G. I think one of the things that's going through my mind is if we invest in these young people today, we might not reap the benefits tomorrow, might not reap them in the next day, but in the future, when we expect these young people to take on commitments, such as community commitments like halls, etc., that is when they will remember, what did Dumfries and Galloway Council do for me in my lifetime?
Thank you. Councillor Maitland.
Yes, I think the question about do you intend to stay is probably quite a curious question, given the real differences right across the wards. So I think maybe possibly need to pick away at that one in the future. My question was very much along the lines of Councillor Ferguson's comments about how this is going to inform our planning. I really commend the ward profile way that we've worked this. Although 55% of the response came from 3 wards in urban areas, nevertheless we do have at least a chance to look and see what has been done on a ward basis, and I think that's absolutely right. So, I mean, Councillor Drysdale and Campbell and I spoke yesterday to the ward worker and talked about this particular piece of work, about how we could take it forward locally. But I do want to have a joined up approach to it. And so I do commend, please, Leader, that that it comes through explicitly in the plans that the Council has.
Thank you. Councillor Hislop.
Chair, I think it's quite informative, this paper. One of the things it shows across the whole region on average, the one thing that scores the lowest is opportunities for young people to develop innovative projects and businesses and work within their local area. And I think that's something we as a council could possibly look at future budgets to actually invest in the economic development of this area, to see if we can actually attract them back here, find what they want to do, whether it's through better communications, through broadband, etc., so that they can actually have those opportunities. But that's something I think we need to take away. You know, you're going to leave the region if you're going to travel. That happens. Study, we don't have the number of people whereby we can have the best courses here. We can have really good courses in certain areas. But if you're wanting to do law, I think is it Edinburgh you go to. If you want to do medicine, you go wherever. So we need to look to see what we can get as our expertise down here and work on that. And we need to create the ability for young people to actually say, we want to come here because we can get a job, we can have a career, we can be economically vibrant. And I think that's something we as a council can help with, so we should look to that in the future.
Thank you. I think also the new enterprise agency as well, I think that certainly the evidence that they were collecting over the year, there was quite a strong focus actually on the fact across the south of Scotland, young people leave the area and don't come back, and actually there need to be measures taken to address that. Councillor Marshall.
I'm totally opposite to Ivor. I've looked at what the top issue is, which is very worrying, which is bullying right across Dumfries and Galloway, and I think that is very important. We've heard a lot today about hate. Bullying is one of the worst forms of hate, and I think we really need to actually, grasp the nettle with this one. It's always been flagged up. I think the 5-year plan has to actually put in measures, and through working with the Youth Council, the full council has to actually try and address this through education, etc. That is worrying. That bullying is the top response back throughout the region.
That's an important point. I think there needs to be zero tolerance towards bullying at all levels. It has to be by example as well as by policies that we have within the schools. I know it's a much bigger issue, and it's about something we need to address. Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, my previous reference to the Free Press and the front page article in terms of mobs of youths causing mayhem, and I'm looking at page 118 and 109, 118, 119. And in Dumfries and Galloway, across Dumfries and Galloway, alcohol use is one of the top 5 issues. And similar to Stranraer and Rins, crime and the law, again, is one of the 5, as is item 5, what's on in my area. And it's just through you, Chair, directing at Mark in what he said, and I'm heartened with what he did say. And I would hope we could look for an early doors in terms of the election of the Youth Council, that we sit down with the youths and we turn what is a negative and try and see how we can turn that into a positive for the youths of Stranraer, so that we do provide what indeed they require. And to that, I think I would pay tribute and to another of Emily's colleagues, and that was Neil McCulloch, who, as an MYSP, he actually got the award for campaigning events and so forth. So, yes, we've got some good youths in Dumfries and Galloway, and it's, I would hope, in the Stranraer and Rins area that we have some kind of forum through Mark for the Stranraer area in terms of that one specific issue. I hope I can get through you that assurance, Chair, that it's an early meeting to see what we can do.
Okay, Mark, you.
Probably across some of the points generally that a number of members have made is to give the reassurance that prior to this coming to committee that there's been a corporate approach taken across the council, but also with our community planning partners, about going and meeting with their senior leadership teams in each of those organisations to ensure that the findings of this are actually used across the corporate council and not just within one service. We've very much seen it as the youth work service for the facilitators of this, but the findings of this impact across the council as a whole, as an employer, but also as an organisation that's very much supporting community empowerment and directly delivering services. In terms of the Youth Council, that once the Youth Council is elected, that I would just urge members to have a bit of patience with it, as you would maybe know at the point when you first became a member, that I think there's a lot of expectation around the Youth Council, and what we're very much trying to do is use the summer period after their exams to ensure that they've got the appropriate training and support, with the first meeting starting after the summer, so they understand further the roles and responsibilities they've got, and working closely, hopefully with the ward officers, that on a local basis we would be able to convene over the summer period a meeting at each ward level with the newly elected ward members, so that they can be introduced and there's an opportunity to discuss there how they go forward. And one of the first pieces of work that the Youth Council will be doing is creating an action plan around how they want to take some of these things forward, and that there is absolute buy-in from all the directors across the council around supporting the agenda going ahead in terms of then delivering some of that action plan across all services in the council.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. Just one thing I found interesting, it's really good, the way it's laid out and the percentage and averages. But you've got, for example, in Annandale North, you've got public transport meets my needs at 3.75, and yet in Castle Douglas, it meets 6 out of 7 meets the public transport, meets the needs. And it's very, very different. But, I think Annandale North would be I would have imagined have been a better place for transport. How much does transport influence all the rest of this as well? You've got I think it was mentioned before, it's to do with, regulation and deregulation, and the capacity for councils to actually do something about that, where it's curtailed at the moment, because of it won't change on a national level, so it won't change on a local level. You're not allowed to do various aspects of which you would like to do. How do the young people feel about, there's been mooted in the Scottish Parliament about people under 25 getting free bus travel, and would that help in all aspects, whether it be work, whether it be training, whether it be social, anything?
Anybody want to take that up?
I definitely think this will help. The Scottish Youth Parliament voted this year for Transport for Young People to be our national campaign for making it accessible, affordable, for all young people, no matter where they live. However, especially in such a rural region where with such a widespread population of young people, having a public transport system that would be free would be an incredible positive for young people to be able to not only access education, further education, but also to engage with youth work services, to engage with opportunities to create businesses, things like that. And I know one of the big findings of our recent report on transport for across the country in the Youth Parliament is that on average young people are spending £12 a week to get to and from school, and that was a big finding for our report. So I really think that free transport will help the engagement of young people and just reinforce the positive destinations that they would have access to.
I suppose the other problem, of course, is the lack of public transport altogether, that actually we need to improve the public transport system in order to make sure that people can get where they need to be. Anybody else? Okay, are we happy to agree that arrangements are made for a meeting between ourselves and the Youth Council later in the year? We'll look forward to that, and to note the findings of 10,000 Voices. Thank you. And can I thank Emily, Lauren and Sophie and Mark for, it's been quite a long session with you, but I think it reflects the genuine interest in the work of the Youth Services team and the work around the Year of Young People and the legacy that we spent so long talking about it. But thanks very much for your time and for coming. Okay. I'm told that lunch is here, and it's sandwiches and tray bakes. Do we want? Okay, shall we we'll take half an hour, shall we, to get some sandwiches and tray bakes, and then come back. So come back to order, please. Thank you. I'm assuming, I know that some people have left, so I'm assuming maybe this is. I don't think everybody's left. There seemed to be a remarkable reduction of people. However, shall we make progress on to item 6, which is a report, a comprehensive assessment on progress and future plans in relation to the delivery of the Council's statutory duties around equalities. Members will be aware that the Council, as a public body, has a duty to report on our progress on our local equality outcomes every other year, and this report presents this information, as well as the required information on our workforce and pay equality. Stuart Clanahan and Ian McKenzie are here to assist if members have any questions. So can I open up to members' debate? Councillor Darby.
Thanks. This is quite a comprehensive report and shows that we're doing all that we can to support equality within not only our council but right across the region. It gives some excellent information for members to look at, and I sort of going on the recommendations. I'd like to recommend that we actually go with those recommendations in the future.
Okay. Anybody? Any other questions? Can I just ask myself about page 175 on race? It states that 0.08% is made up from minority ethnic groups, but I actually make it 0.71%, which would actually be in line with the ethnic split within Dumfries and Galloway. I don't know, it's a misprint or whatever.
I think there was an odd rounding issue there, so you're absolutely right with that one.
I suppose it's just an observation, but I'm a bit concerned on page 183 by the high number of employees who don't want to declare their sexual orientation, and whether that actually reflects the fact that LGBT plus people are still anxious that if they tell people that they're going to face discrimination.
Certainly all our policies and practice are geared towards promoting that positivity around the workplace. We encourage staff when they join us to disclose protected characteristic information, and we also periodically try to update that information. So we go back to the workforce periodically and ask them if they would like to add to the information they've already given.
Councillor Charges?
I'd just like to point out one thing in Appendix 2 here. It's about meeting the better accommodation of gypsies and travellers. It is as I see Jeff Lever's come in now. He's well experienced in this, having given a lot of advice to it. But it does affect the villagers a lot as well as the travellers. And it also has a major effect on the school, as you know recently, where the travelling children did not move with the other children to the alternate accommodation. They stayed in Culin for reasons known to their parents. And that makes it difficult for the head teacher to plan her work. And it also affects the village itself, where people come and go, and the school doesn't know how many pupils they're going to have in any particular one day, and whether they're going to need a second teacher. It makes life difficult, and what I'm asking is that the improvements which I think have to be made to that accommodation is done early and soon, because the villagers have lived for a very long time under difficult conditions.
Well, it's certainly a difficult situation, because the assessment about the amount that it'll cost in order to bring that up to the requisite standard, but clearly we can't leave people living in that sort of condition, so it's something we're going to have to find a solution for, and we have, there's an impetus on it from Scottish Government to find that solution sooner rather than later. Anybody else? Okay, are we happy to move to the recommendations, which are to approve the progress report, to approve the workforce information, and to approve the Council's gender pay gap report? And if we can, I'll just do this as well. Move on to the Treasury Management and Capital Strategy report. This report provides members with details of the Treasury Management Strategy, as well as the related capital strategy for the upcoming financial year, and includes the prudential indicators which support the Council's agreed capital investment strategy. The requirement to produce a capital strategy was introduced for the financial year 2019-20, and this is therefore the first year we have prepared this. The Treasury Management Strategy is a more familiar document, and we consider this each year. Paul Garrett and Karen Donaldson are here to assist if members have any questions. But before we go on to that, can we acknowledge the retirement of Andy Ewart, our Treasury Officer, after 33 years of service to the Council, and thank him for his support, particularly on the pensions fund, which I know I've seen personally, and he has a lot of work to do on that, and also just the basic sound treasury management that he's provided for the Council over the years. Can I open the meeting up to member debate? Okay, any?
Again, this is one of the things that's going to be difficult in the next few years, to make sure that our capital investment actually brings payback to Dumfries and Galloway Council. And I think what we see here is a strategy that's going to help that situation, although we will be strapped, there's no doubt, for some of the projects that come forward in the future. We've already made some of these decisions in the capital projects, and I think what we will see is a massive improvement in some of the assets and the projects that we see in the future, making sure, of course, that we do this as an enabling council, and hopefully with all of the borderlands and South of Scotland enterprise partnerships that are going on, that will help this capital investment strategy.
Okay, now, Councillor Charters.
In the recommendations, that the prudential indicators and treasury management activities will be subject to continual monitoring, but later on in the report, under 311 and into 313, The recent internal audit on Treasury management activities highlighted that 2 of the Treasury indicators, operational boundary for external debt and authorised limit for external debt, could be deemed to be deemed high and provide too much flexibility to Treasury officers. Well, those 2 things are aimed to take into account the prudential indicators, and actually what the audit found need to be looked at together, because we can't have a Treasury management which allows debt to get too high and provide too much flexibility to Treasury officers at a time when borrowing is likely, for other political reasons, to be very much higher than it is at the moment.
Okay, I did actually pick that out myself when I read this. Paul, maybe you could explain a little more on that.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. It's a fair point that they do need to be looked at together. What that comment from internal audit is saying is not that our level of debt is too high or is heading too high. What it's saying is that there's too much flexibility between our current level of debt and the operational boundary that we've set. We've never exceeded the operational boundary, and the boundary is supposed to be set in a manner where it could be exceeded on a temporary basis and then reported to members. But internal audit, and we shared the view, it was that the view was that the operational boundary was slightly too high, so it wasn't really providing that real control over what we were doing. So we've actually, in this report, adjusted that down to a more realistic level. But as I say, we've never gone above that level in the past. It's not created any issues. We're just trying to make sure that control's there going forward.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Councillor Carruthers.
Oh, just for, John's raised a valid point, so I wonder, Paul, because it goes on to actually say that it's been changed, but are the measures, the level it's been changed, are you comfortable with that now? Do you think that's appropriate? And what is the actual difference?
What we did was we undertook a review of the levels that are set by other authorities. To be honest, there's a very wide range. We were well with it. We weren't seen as higher in comparison to a number of authorities. What we looked at was where they were set in terms of the range and the parameters. What we've done is, and we've looked at the guidance on this, the operational boundary is basically now set at the current level of debt plus an estimate of the level of further long-term borrowing we'll need to undertake to support capital over the next 2 financial years. That's now the basis of our operational boundary. The authorised limit is another 5% above that, but as reflected in the report, we do not anticipate ever going as high as the authorised limit level.
Okay. Councillor Maitland.
It's just a sort of overall question. What level, help me please, what level of scrutiny does external audit take on this sort of activity?
I mean, as part of their overall audit, they have a look at our Treasury management activities, they look at our policy statement, they look at this report that's before members today and the degree of scrutiny that's undertaken against it. But when they've not highlighted anything of concern in relation to our Treasury management activities for quite a considerable period, they fully understand how we go about our business, they provide assurance on that, but they haven't raised any concerns regarding any of our approaches.
I was looking further into this report, and I was looking at page 209, saying what we will invest in 2017-18 to 2026-27, and there's a pie chart on that on that page. What caught my eye was priority projects, flood schemes, 32.8 million, and priority projects, DG1, 17.5 million. And that says what we will invest in between 2017-18 to 26-27. Those figures seem to be wildly greater than what we've been told we're going to have to be provided for DG1. And of course, we don't know what the flood scheme is going to do yet because they haven't yet reported. But it's no doubt if it is to be built, it will be a very expensive operation. But I'm just wondering why those two have suddenly appeared in there.
I think it reflects what's in the capital strategy anyway. I mean, what was already in the capital strategy. Did that? Paul?
Just to add a couple of points of clarification, you're absolutely right. It's fully based on what's already been agreed by members in the capital investment strategy. In terms of the flood schemes, it's important to recognise that 80% of that will be funded by the Scottish Government, so the Council will only fund the 20% element, but that is the full cost of the project reflected in that table because it's showing a gross capital expenditure. On DG1, in terms of what we're showing there, it's the period from 2017-18, so it's not just the current year and the year before, it's next year as well, so it's the total cost of that development project. So that's in line with what members have previously been informed.
Not actually any new decision in that. It's just this is just reporting. There's no
I'm not sure
new
it's
decisions
what,
in it particularly.
I'm not sure it's what the citizens of Dumfries and Galloway expect, that they have got to pay in addition to what already has been paid out.
That it does include what's already been spent, though, because it's for a longer period. It's a previous. It comes from 2017, so most of that on DG1 has actually already been spent.
Exactly right. It's also the point that that again is the gross figure, and the council received a significant contribution towards that from the developer.
Yeah, it was the future that I was reading about, what we will invest in, rather than the past.
Yeah, it's for a period. Some of it's in the future, but it does include a past period as well. So that's why some of the expenditure on DG1 is showing up in there, because it was.
But it can't be invested in both the future and the past. It's not possible there.
But there's a period from 2017.
Otherwise, you have to go back to the previous paragraph where it says that too much is left of the finance.
It's maybe not the best grammar. Maybe it should be what we are investing in rather than what we will invest in. Councillor Carruthers.
So for clarity, when I was reading the decision making part 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, I think if what's being referred to in Appendix 1, there may well be forecast projected spends in there in regards to the capital strategy, but we're only agreeing a single year at this moment in time. Is that right? That's what when I read that 1920 it says. So it says agree the council's capital strategy for 1920. That's probably what I'm saying. I think that other stuff's probably just information, and it may or may not change in time.
Just to clarify, you're not being asked to agree any capital investment decisions as part of this report. You agreed the capital investment strategy as part of the budget setting at February's full council. What we're being asked to do is purely the capital strategy document that provides an overarching summary of what's agreed within that strategy and how it links to our treasury management.
It should be the council's capital strategy document rather than. Yeah. Councillor Hislop.
Chair, forgive me, I might have forgotten what this was for, but on page 215, the capital investment out with CIS, Hubco 225, and Dumfries Common Good Heston House 800,000. Just clarification: is the Hubco that money we invested as part of the company? Is that what that was? But what was the 800,000 for the Heston House?
The investment in Heston House was agreed through full council from reference to from the Crichton subcommittee. It was passed to the Crichton subcommittee for sort of development work at Heston House, and that'll be repaid to us. So it's more of a loan rather than an investment.
Councillor Hislop.
So will that money be coming back to the Common Good Fund?
No, because it didn't come out the Common Good Fund, it was council money.
Why is it in here as Dumfries Common Good then?
I think, am I aware it's a Common Good property? Don't know.
I think that money it was given as a loan, as has been stated, £100,000 to the Heston House, which is classed as common good, I think. But then that money comes back to the council through the loan that we've given them. So we're lending money.
Thanks for the clarification. Councillor Hislop.
So Heston House belongs to the Common Good?
Talking off the top of my head here, but I don't think the the Crichton estate is in the common good because it's out with the boundary of the common good of the town in the former boundary. So I think there's maybe just an error there.
My understanding that doesn't matter because I think there are other lands out with that belong to the common good. I didn't think it was the common good, and if it was handed over, it was handed over to the health board, to the council, post 1975. So why is it in here as common good? What is the reference to the common good?
Is that a mistake?
Potentially, we'll have a look at the terminology. I think it is purely a terminology issue in as much as what we're reflecting here in our Treasury Management Strategy is that the Council has made an £800,000 loan as part of the development of Heston House. Whether that's the correct terminology, we'll check that and adjust it if it needs to be done.
I think that should, it needs to be checked before this gets sent anywhere. It has to make sure that actually reflects the actual possession and not, I mean, it may be, I mean, it's not unusual. I mean, last year, the Crichton actually asked us for a loan, which I don't think they ever took up, but they did ask us for a loan last year as well. Any further questions? Okay, are we content to agree the document with the proviso that we check the reference to the common good within it? Okay, good. And the strategy statement in Appendix 2, great, and to note the issues about the monitoring of the prudential indicators and Treasury management activities, and that we can amend them. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to the paper on modernising the council and the transformation update. Get that properly. Okay. Full Council agreed a budget for the 2019-20 year at its meeting on the 28th of February, and this report updates members on the plans to manage delivery and the next steps on certain aspects, including the future transformation activity, the reorganisation of the scheme of delegation and responsibility to officers, and the statutory appointments. It also asks members to consider undertaking reviews of the committee structure and delegations, transformation board and budget process. We were all disappointed when the work of the transformation board and the teams working on its themes did not produce the anticipated £30 million or so of savings, and instead came up with £2.5 million, which, as we all know, gave us considerable difficulty during the budget process. I'm not trying to blame the transformation board for this, but it's clear that what was proposed in last year's budget didn't work this year. And I think one of the greatest disappointments around that was being unable to carry out adequate consultation on the budget due to time constraints. Councillor Davidson and I are determined that this shall not happen again, and the process this year must be much more robust. Having discussed the report with colleagues in the administration group, I'm going to suggest, and for your discussion, that we reword recommendations 2.5 and 2.6 to issue more clear instruction. So 2.5, I suggest, could read: a review of committee structures and delegations will be undertaken through the Standing Orders Subcommittee, and with a report coming back to full council at our June meeting. And 2.6 being a review of the Transformation Board and budget process will be undertaken in the first instance by the Transformation Board, but potentially also through the Standing Orders Subcommittee, if that becomes appropriate, and a report on this review will be presented to the June meeting of full council. The Chief Executive is here to assist members if they have any questions about the restructuring of the council, directorates and the revised scheme of delegation and responsibilities. So can I open up to members' debate? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I think those suggestions are among recommendation 2.5 and 2.6 that you have outlined are sensible. I think that in line with the action that the Chief Executive has advised full council, that it will be a quite quick reorganisation expected to end and be finalised in about the June period. I think it's also therefore essential that this council decides in June how we want our committees to function going forward to ensure that a continuity of business, and of course to achieve the aims of the council and the requirements that will be needed in future budget setting processes. Also, I think it's quite important to maintain a degree of flexibility around the transformation process and the budget setting process, that there's no reason why they can't be completely changed. I think that there's an opportunity to look at what other councils do to maybe strengthen that transformation process. But I think it's essential that everybody here remembers that there will be an option if your recommendations are passed for it to go through the Review of Standing Orders subcommittee, and that if people do want to bring things to the table, that there will be that opportunity, and that we can't have in June any calls to delay it any further. I think that if people do want to see changes, I think they really do need to be thrashed out at the Review of Standing Orders subcommittee, so that in June we can have essentially the reorganisation and the restructure of the council completed and ready for business to continue.
Thank you, Leader. Entirely support your suggestions in 2.5 and 2.6. It's simply with reference to the Transformation Board. We had both reflected at budget setting on the importance of reviewing what the Transformation Board had done and what it might do next. It seems sensible that that should start with the board itself. After all, who is best placed to examine what went well and what did not necessarily go as might have been expected than the people who started off with it? I think that is where we have to start with that process. And the Transformation Board does have a lot of potential, and I think that it's set out in very much the right lines. What we need to understand is where it potentially went adrift slightly later on in the process. But I think it's entirely sensible that that piece of work starts with the Transformation Board, moves elsewhere if necessary. But I do take on board Councillor Wilson's point that process should not be lengthy, because we will need the new transformation process or the refreshed board or both to be up and running as soon as possible after full council makes decisions in June, because of course there will be another budget to be grappled with all too quickly thereafter. See the wry smile on the Chief Executive's face at that. So very much in support of these recommendations, Leader. I think they're a sensible way forward.
Councillor Nicholson.
Okay, yes. The Transformation Board isn't working as it is, and I think it does need reviewed. It needs to be strengthened, there needs to be more discipline within that as well, and it doesn't become a political talking shop as sometimes it has been in the past. The Transformation Board, I think, gives more representative to discussions. The Standing Orders Subcommittee, I think it's a good idea, but again, if you're making recommendations, I think you need as wide as possible a membership on that. I don't have to be on it, or I'm not on the Transformation Board or whatever, but I think it does have, there's 7 people on it, I think, and maybe the wider experience of the membership needs to be looked at as well, so that they come, put forward and don't get a mess like Theresa May, and have a wider range of opinions than one.
I think our intention was that although the Standing Orders Subcommittee would make recommendations, but the individuals or groups could make their recommendations to the Standing Orders Committee, so that you would have the opportunity to involve everybody and everybody's ideas, and then get those, as Adam said, thrashed out. Adam.
I think certainly, thinking about it, the quickest process is probably to put it through the Review of Standing Orders Subcommittee to allow members to open and transparently actually, take part in that process. But I think I'll seek governance advice, but certainly I completely agree with Councillor Nicholson's point. There is only 7 members, or however many ever there is, of the Review of Standing Orders Subcommittee. But essentially, I believe that the rules are in place that if a member did wish to go along to that committee, although they couldn't take part in the vote, they would nevertheless be able to take part in the discussion. I believe it's up to the chair. So certainly there is that opportunity. But I think that the important thing is, I think, certainly in my opinion, that's the quickest route to take it, so that at the end of June this year we can get ready to sort of continue business as usual and make sure that the council can function along. But having made this important change.
I think the other point about the Transformation Board is that the trade unions have places on the Transformation Board. Not all the unions so far have taken them up, but I think there was a feeling with the unions that there hadn't been sufficient consultation with the membership or with the frontline workforce, and I think actually we need to look at how that can be represented as well, because there's a lot of people doing the job can quite often see where money can be saved or where things can be done better, and we do need to have actually that conversation with the workforce about their views and how the way in which the council functions can be improved. Councillor Crothers.
Thanks, Leader. I suppose if you just remind us what the changes are in reference to the appendix and 2.4 in our recommendation, just if we're going to be reminded what the actual changes are, had a good look through it. But I think going beyond that, your change to the recommendations is something that was, as I read through it, I thought there was something very, very missing here. It's all right just considering, but if that's what your amendments are, so you change what we're doing, but it obviously has to be different from what it has been doing previously. Definition of insanity being keep doing the same things and expecting different results. So one of the questions worked through my mind when I was reading this report, are we still sticking to the council's priorities and commitments very strongly, or will they get a chance to actually allow officers to think out the box, come up with rational, maybe even irrational options, so on and so forth, along with our own, obviously. But this has got to work. We agree that actually get the timeline sorted out, make it as expeditious as possible, but how do we actually, so a wee bit of clarity in regards to that 2.4 thing, exactly what is it we're agreeing to there? And
on 2.4 I'll pass you over to the Chief Executive, because that's part of his report.
So at 2.4 it says agree the updated scheme of delegation responsibility officers, and it talks about the changes in there, Gavin. I don't know if you've got any comments in regards to what them changes are and what it makes.
Aligning the responsibilities from the previous management structure to one that's for officers less. So it's basically just realigning those responsibilities in a way that does not then have a cascade, as the last process did, of excessive matching processes at low levels. So it's really just aligning the responsibilities from officers to the new post that members agreed. The matching process is currently underway to place officers into those posts, but all it does is align the responsibilities from the previous scheme into a smaller number of posts that members agreed as part of the budget process. So that's really all that's done, is to realign to make sure that as officers are appointed, they have full delegated powers to take forward the council's plans. So that really is all that is doing, is realigning to potentially 4 posts less in the structure.
I thought that was, you came back to in particular the management reductions that came through, that 650k, I suppose it aligns to that, but it did, so that's what I thought it was, so I'm absolutely clear, but I just probably because I didn't have another one to compare it to and go through and actually see that's probably where it was lacking for me. But again, going back to what it does, and probably some of the questions I put to yourself, Leader, the council's priorities and commitments, I feel that was a hindrance last time to the Transformation Board. I'm not saying they shouldn't be considered, they should maybe be at the top because the council's agreed that, but it was a hindrance in regards to allowing fresh and fruitful thinking coming forward from both ourselves and the actual
the council plan it was agreed by full council, so the council plan's not going to change, but in terms of what you might want people to think, that's part of the discussion. I mean, I think if we go back to the Transformation Board and where we analyse what went wrong, you may want to make some of those points at that point. You know, that if that's your view as to what went wrong. I mean, it's not necessarily for agreement just now. I would be actually for agreement particularly when we come back in June, having had the discussions. Councillor Young.
Yes, thank you, Leader. The funding table on page 343 is just a little bit of clarification. If you look, for instance, at the 2021 column, the funding gap is over 34 million. Is that a cumulative gap, including the 18 million from the previous year, or as it appears there, is that the total gap for that particular calendar year?
I think it's cumulative, yeah, I think it is.
I also believe it's cumulative, but the way the table's set out is wrong, basically. It's not for that 1 year, it's to the end of 2021.
I think it's the way in which it's generally reported in terms of the funding gap. We tend to report it cumulatively rather than on the single year, because otherwise you can look as if you've already made the savings.
No, I agree with that, but a member of the public looking at this it would appear quite a horrific funding gap, especially in the third year. It's not very clear.
happy to provide additional columns in the future to make sure it's absolutely transparent for members.
Councillor Scobie?
Yeah, Chair, I hear what Adam Wilson said in terms of standing orders and how individual members can go along and make representation or indeed be included in the discussion. As standing orders is written, it does not allow, what it allows under standing orders, that a member can go along and request to speak. And in my experience, I have been refused on at least one of those committees. So it does not allow the member to enter into the discussion. They may get an opportunity, and that's at the discretion of the relevant chair. So I think in terms of the 7 members on standing orders, it does not accommodate the individual member, and maybe that's something that we need to look at. But in terms of the page 344, under 331, the transformation board was based around the following agreed principles. And under bullet point 2 there, priorities and communities in our council plan focused on economy, children, vulnerable people. Well, I regard children and some of the most vulnerable children who are at risk. So it may not only need for standing orders to look at this, or other transformational board, but also audit and risk in terms of just how children could be at risk in terms of the budget on the nearly $750,000 being taken out of additional support for learners. And indeed, and it may only be rumoured, but I did hear that there could be a campaign mounted to actually seek a judicial review on some of our budget agreements in terms of what we are taking out of the services. So I think the council could be at risk. So maybe something for audit and risk to look at, just how close we are running. What risk are we at running in terms of some of the cuts that we are going to implement in 2019-20? And even worse, if someone does raise a judicial review.
If they do, they do. There we go. Yeah. Councillor Hagman.
Thank you, Leader. It's just a sort of a quick question, really. Our school meals and our catering services, where's that going to fall? Because I'm looking under Director of Communities and also Director of Education and Learning, and we've got school operations and free school meals under Director of Education, but what about the school meal services as a whole, and any catering that the council currently do? Where's that going to sit in terms of directorates?
Okay, Lorna.
My understanding, Councillor Hagman, is that it's currently with facilities and remains there, but that's an issue members might want to look at in due course as well. But it's currently operated through what is Enterprise and D&G.
So, sorry, can you just clarify where it's ultimately going to sit in the new structure?
It sits within Economy and Development with facilities, where it currently sits in terms of service, it's just within a different service.
So who would be ultimately responsible? Sorry,
me.
You, yourself. Okay, thank you.
Okay, okay, Chief Executive.
Obviously, as members as the heads of service bring forward the service plans, that's an opportunity for members, perhaps if we wish to change things as the new heads of service start to look at the responsibilities. We never anticipated that some services might, when we have a longer to look at it, end up in a different place. So it's only once those service plans have been through the committee cycle, we'll bring, if any changes are made, we'll bring it back to members at that point, so there's absolute clarity. But we did envisage that there was a long and hard debate amongst SLT about where this sits, because we've tried it in 3 or 4 different places. So again, it's some consideration perhaps that the head of service and the service plan will have with individual members and the committee.
Okay. Rosa.
Thank you very much, Leader. As Chair of the Standing Orders Subcommittee, I just want to make it very clear that we're going to be open to anybody wanting to speak. This couldn't be more important, and so I will make sure that people are represented and their views are represented.
Thanks very much for the assurance. Councillor Nicholson.
Just thanks very much for that, Rose. Just one thing, just a wee bit of clarification, and it's maybe Gavin's. It's in 2.2, especially 2.22, and in 2.5, delegations to officers. Now, the delegation to officers that it says here that in general particular basis the powers requested must be fully specified and regular updates must be provided to committee, including details of any proposed major variations. In 2.5 it then goes on to say, however, if a specific power is not mentioned in the scheme of delegation of responsibilities to officers and statutory appointments, it does not necessarily mean that the officers cannot exercise that power. Could you give us an example, maybe something that would mean? You know, I'm not saying that, you know, I know it's necessary sometimes to streamline the decision-making process if something urgent comes up, but how do the two then come together?
Yeah, I think we're pretty fortunate in that our scheme of delegation does usually cover every eventuality. I can think of one which was at the last local government elections. Yeah, there've been, you know, members. There was a gap between members being elected and being sort of not able to sit on the licensing boards, and then being the first full council where people were appointed to the boards. And I had to make some decisions almost in place of the board. And so I consulted members just to make sure that they were okay with me doing that during the period where we weren't going to have any members. So that was an example of when it wasn't specific that I had that power, but it had to be exercised, and we found a way to do it. Yeah.
Would then homologate that by bringing it back to members following that position. One, I was just thinking there, Councillor Nicholson, is something around the Civil Contingencies Act, where you may have to take an action that may not be covered under the conditions, but in those circumstances, those would also be brought back to members following that decision. I'm trying desperately to think of one, but there may have been something around the closure of a care home that may have required an action that wasn't anticipated at the time, but it's very, very infrequent, and we usually cover that by bringing a homologating report back to members immediately following that. We don't just rely on taking the decision. But we'll have a good think and see if we can circulate some examples of it.
Was the Dromore Harbour expenditure, was that an example of something?
It could have been, but I think we found a way around that.
Because again, it came back after the money was decided. Sorry,
you know, I wasn't questioning, I was questioning the wording, and the decisions that's been taken, they're absolutely right, and you had to do that. I have no issue with that. It just says in here that delegation of responsibility to officers and statutory appointments, it does not necessarily mean that officers cannot exercise that power. And is that a full exercise? So that could mean anything, I suppose. Could it? That could mean anything, taking any decision any time that thinks. I'm not saying it would happen, and to my mind it's never happened, but is that wording in there still open to that interpretation?
I suspect that was written to cover things such as the statutory function of the monitoring officer or the finance officer or the chief social work officer, and where in a situation where the council might agree a policy which is directly in contravention but not exactly illegal. I don't imagine it would happen here, but certainly I can think of when I used to be the auditor of Liverpool, where there was a number of occasions where officers had to take decisions that sometimes were not covered in delegation schemes from council. That's why they got into trouble. But I can't imagine a situation, and there would be a chain, no officer below the chief executive would take it without consultation, and certainly were delegated down. So trying to give you the assurance, if you perhaps if members, I'll seek advice from colleagues as to whether this has been used, so members can see examples and perhaps consider it, perhaps even if it's through standing orders subcommittee. So if I bring perhaps a paper back for members' consideration, just to see if I can think of examples of where this has been exercised. Certainly I think it happens in England quite a lot, but we've got stricter controls in Scotland.
I think that's good, and it's for everybody's safety. Everybody can look at delegations in a different way.
Okay. Any further questions? Councillor Scobie. Oh, sorry. Councillor McClellan, I think you were first, then Councillor Scobie.
Thank you, Leader. It's just with regard to the Transformation Board. I notice on the calendar there's no meeting scheduled for the Transformation Board. Could we maybe get something in at the earliest opportunity to get our heads together, please?
It's a good point, yes. We need to make progress. Yeah. Councillor Scobie?
Yeah, Chair, I'm grateful for the expression by Ross as Chair of the Standing Orders Committee. Could I be clear, or maybe if Ross could be clear on it, that she did use the word representation. Am I to take that as an individual member I would be able to go to that Standing Orders Committee, participate in the discussion without wishing to be involved in any votes? Is that what we're saying, and is that acceptable by the Council, which I hope it would be?
Leader, that would be my intention.
Thank you. Good. No further? Okay. Are we content to note as recommendations 1, 2 and 3? Right. Agree the updated scheme of delegation responsibilities. And then we changed, I had 2.5 is now changed. So it says a review of committee structures and delegations will be undertaken through the Standing Orders Subcommittee with a report coming back to full Council at our June meeting. Are we content to agree that?
Can I just add something? I've thought about Councillor Carruthers' question about what's changed from the previous delegations to this. So perhaps, Councillor Carruthers, if I did a one-page diagram that shows where the key responsibilities have moved across the heads for members' clarification, if that would be helpful. Yeah.
And 2.6 now reads, a review of the Transformation Board and budget process will be undertaken in the first instance by the Transformation Board, but potentially also through the Standing Orders Subcommittee if that becomes appropriate. And the report on this review will be presented to the June meeting of full Council. Good. To item 9, this DG1 update. This report provides an update for members on actions taken since the full Council meeting on the 18th of December. The report focuses on the costs of completing the remedial and improvement works to bring the facility back into operation and highlights a diligent and robust cost management approach adopted to ensure that the project is delivered in accordance with approved funding. The report also provides a welcome update on the programme and timeline to complete the project. Councillors Davidson, Maitland and I recently visited the site and we were most impressed by the quality of the work. Councillor Lever also visited last week and was similarly impressed. Indeed, I may even be inspired to abandon my current slothful lifestyle when it comes on stream in July. Frank Crilly and Richard Greaveson are here to assist members if they have any questions. Any questions on the report? Councillor Carruthers.
Just a small one, really, because there has been a lot of change, a lot of improvement, so on and so forth. But we're conscious, obviously, of savings and there's a £1.1 million tag in regards to the running costs. A lot of that was to do with loss of hair, heat exchanges, and so on and so forth. I just wonder the improvements, have we got any near the point now where we can actually see a change kind of in a downward spiral, where we're actually making a bit of a saving in regards to what we did previously? So running costs, I'm saying whether it's gas, whether it's whatever it may be.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you, Chair. We presented the business plan to the SIPL committee earlier this week and explained the revenue budget. I think it's fair to say we've taken a judicious and cautious view in terms of the revenue budget. There's a number of unknowns and variables when we reopen the facility. However, I mentioned to committee earlier this week that my hope and expectation is that when we report back after the first 6 months' performance, that would be a very positive position against budget. In summary, the targets are realistic and appropriate given that summary, but we would expect that and hope that obviously the facility will perform well.
Okay, any further questions? We've exhausted everybody, I think. Okay, are we quite happy to note the two recommendations, noting the project works, contingency budget, and noting that the completion of the works is scheduled for the 1st of July, and that we hope to see the facility open we intend to see the facility open on the 15th of July, which will coincide with the school holidays. Thank you. Item 10 is progress in responding to the independent inquiry recommendations. This report presents a third update on the agreed response plan to address the recommendations in the inquiry report, as agreed by full Council on the 26th of June last year. The report sets out the work undertaken by the Executive Working Group, an update on progress against the response plan, business case development and building standards review. Lorna Meehan, Paul McCulloch and Steve Rogers are here to assist if members have any questions. Councillor Driver.
Thanks, Chair. Again, this is, progress is being made on independent inquiry recommendations. I just, at the last, I think it was the last full Council of Policy and Resources, we did look at the Project Management Office and making sure that that's actually in place moving forward for any major projects going ahead. Can you tell us where that actually is at the moment and what sort of skills are we looking for in those people that will be in there?
So thanks for that, Chair. The PMO office, the intention is that it will sit within the property and facilities wing of the council going forward. So what we're doing is we're pulling together component parts from across the council. So we've got some activity taking place in various directorates that are all coming in under the one office. So the intention really is to standardise processes, systems, governance. And in terms of your question on training, it's to utilise a sort of matrix, a Scottish Futures Trust matrix, in terms of ensuring that the people we have doing this type of activity have the necessary skills, qualifications and experience to deliver.
Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. Just on it's nothing to do with officers, this, but maybe a bit of clarification on the progress. There was a media story today that then saying there's a failure in meeting deadlines, and it's my understanding that it was my understanding we'd have a flexible look at that when issues came up, so it wasn't set in stone. And it actually says that in the report in 3.2.1, timescales were indicative based on the initial assessment of work required, and as advised previously, any changes expected in timescales would be advised in update reports. So it's not a failure in timescales as is being portrayed in the media, and I'd just like clarification on that.
Yes, I picked that up as well. I think it was very disappointing that the BBC were choosing to concentrate on the fact that something hadn't been achieved by a certain date, and surely the really important thing is to get it right, not the date at which it's finished, but the fact that you actually make progress to getting it right. But Laura.
I think in terms of the initial plan, we were clear with members that these were indicative dates based on an initial assessment. Members will be aware that very early on in that process that there was other issues in another building that were to be addressed, and we're using that as very much as part of that learning process to deal with this. But I think it's about making sure we get this right, but also really importantly making sure that members can see that the difference that we put in place, the things that we have developed, actually make a difference. So we could easily just skate over this in a very cursory way and provide assurances that certain processes and structures are in place. But members, I think, deserve, and the public deserve, to see that that has actually worked and made a difference. So we are continuing to bring updates until that work is fully embedded within the council.
Thanks. Councillor Hagman.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'm just looking at the appendix, and we've got on page 281 a progress percentage of 48%, but we don't have a sort of percentage on any of the other indicators. And I was wondering why we didn't. I'm just conscious that some of them have a due date of the 31st of March, and it's, obviously we haven't completed that, but how close are we to completing that? Are they on track? Because certainly in our service committees, when we have these plans, we tend to have exception reports. Are we on track? Are we not? So it's just really to have an overview, and in the future, if because some of these dates are in the future, if we have another report, could we possibly have a percentage of how complete we are with these?
We could provide that.
Thank you.
And are the dates on? Are we on track? That was, Are we on track to complete them for the dates that are in here?
I believe so. I think the only caveat I would give members is around the PMO has a very important element to it, which is staffing change and redeployment and matching. So we're working our way through that just now, but it's bringing 3 services together, and we need to get that right and make sure we take the staff with us. So that will take as long as it takes in terms of making sure we achieve what we set out to do in responding to these recommendations.
Thank you. Any further? Okay.
A further caveat is that we were predicated on the Scottish Parliament's review of building standards and fire standards being complete, and that the working group to deliver that won't actually meet until the spring. And the second is, obviously, we're not now going to receive the North West report for at least another month on the root cause analysis, so we'd have to factor that in. But that probably, the building standards one, we've had an internal review, as said in the paper, of current practice. But certainly we know that the regime around building standards nationally will change in the back of the parliamentary review. So those will be factored in. But most of these, if anything, that would only put us back slightly on the planned times that we've got in here.
Thank you. Councillor McLellan?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I tried to get in earlier on, but I think Lorna's touched on the point, as the Chief has there as well. And I was really going to stress the importance of the learning outcomes from the North West Community Campus. I think I raised that at the previous full council meeting. It's absolutely imperative that that learning is incorporated into this. We undertook this exercise as it would be unfettered, and to get to conclusion, if that means that we're delaying by a few months, we're here to note progress. I think, yeah, we note the progress, but let's take this to proper conclusion and completion.
Yeah. Sensible. Okay, Councillor Nicholson?
Well, I was now going to mention about the North West Community Campus as it's ongoing. It's in a review being undertaken by the Scottish Futures Trust. Now, is that, like an independent review?
Lorna, it's an independent company that's doing, but I can't remember its name. Lorna can tell us.
The organisation that's carrying out the work is a consultancy called, I think, GLM. We fully cooperated with them. They're carrying that out under a contract let through Scottish Futures Trust. We've been clear with government colleagues and with the Scottish Futures Trust that we would be seeking to bring that report in full back to this council and fully reporting that, and also then incorporating that into as part of this inquiry response and any other actions we need to take. So that's ongoing, and we expect and anticipate and have been advised that that report will be finalised within the next month.
Okay, we're happy to note the update on progress. Agenda item 11, the Housing Scotland Act Scheme of Assistance. The purpose of this report is to seek the agreement of Dumfries and Galloway Council to transfer the funding for the delivery of the Small Repairs and Home Support Service, Food Train Extra and Dementia Friendly Design Project to the Integration Joint Board for 2019-20. The Council's Communities Committee endorsed these recommendations at its meeting of the 19th of March and agreed to refer them to full Council, where delegation lies to transfer the budgets to the IJB. Jamie Little is here to assist if members have any questions. Councillor Driver.
Thank you very much. I can remember this 3 years ago as well, about the 149k going for the Small Repairs and Home Support Services, in other words, what we call the handy van. And the handy van's been in Annandale and Nestdale for a lot longer than it has been right across the other areas. I did early doors speak to our housing manager and got some support for the handy van because of the procurement service that this will have to go through, and obviously they, being a third sector organisation, may not have been up to scratch with the procurement route. I'm just wondering if when this goes back to the IJB, the joint board, that the handy van is the service is providing it at the moment. Has there been further support for the handy van to get the procurement in place for applying for this contract?
Thanks, Jim. I should have said you were here too. Thank
you, Chair. The handy van and the funding associated with it is required to comply with the Council's procurement standing orders. At this point in time, procurement has been deferred for a period of 1 year to allow more time to work with the organisations to ensure that they've got the capacity to tender for the works. Handy van and care and repair will both be subject to the procurement process, but not in the current financial year. It will be at the beginning of the next financial year.
Councillor Nicholson?
Thank you. When we transfer that money, and through the procurement to the IJB, the IJB then has responsibility for the handy van. So, are they then liable to maybe change what's being delivered in any kind of way, or does it still have to come back to full council for the services to be?
Okay, thanks, Chair. The funding's obviously agreed through full council on an annual basis, and when that funding is agreed, there's a service level agreement entered into, and it's the same service that will be delivered for the coming year. There's a care and repair steering group that involves representatives from the council, NHS and social work, and it's their role to oversee the delivery of these services. There are no plans to change what is currently being delivered, and if there were, that would be a matter that would come back to this committee for consideration, because strategically it's the council that agrees the funding.
Can't take the money and then spend it on something else or a service we haven't asked for.
Thanks, Chairman.
Councillor Nicholson?
That's fine. The only qualification in that is that it does say in here that they'll have delegated authority ensuring budgets are to deliver best value and comply with procurement regulations, but best value might mean different values than what we've got, but you're saying it's not.
Thanks, Chair. In terms of the funding's agreed annually, and the outcome of the procurement process again would be brought back to this committee. There isn't a requirement for the council to deliver these services. They're not mandatory services, and again, it's up to the council on an annual basis to decide whether it wants to continue to fund the services. If they were subject to a procurement process, and for talk's sake, another organisation won that tender, members would still consider the report broadly this time of year, and again would decide the nature of the service that's to be delivered and the level of funding that's committed to that service. But at the end of the day, all services above certain financial thresholds do have to comply with the council's procurement standing order.
Councillor Inglis?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a question on page 294. I requested at communities for a breakdown on how the 139,000 was spent by Handyvan, and it says it's a region-wide service. However, when you look at the figures, given a third of the population live in Wigtonshire and Stewardshire, the spend doesn't seem to balance out. I'd like to get some assurance that Handyvan will promote its services more robustly in the West and try and get some of that spend over that side of the region.
Yeah, Jamie.
Thanks, Leader. Yes, the Handyvan do a lot of the promotional work across the region. I do see the point you're making there. They do attend a lot of community groups. They also carry out promotional activities, attend events. They also work with the Food Train in Partnership and Scottish Fire and Rescue Service to promote this scheme. The Council has also recently issued a press release following the Communities Committee agreement highlighting these projects. A lot of the word, it's word of mouth, so we would expect to see over future years that there's a more equal spread of the funding and the referrals that come forward, and we will continue to report that to committee in the future.
Councillor Ferguson?
Yeah, I sit on a couple of community groups in Newton Stewart. They've never heard of Handyvan, or it's never been promoted through them. I think they could do an awful lot more in the west of the region than they do. From what I'm led to believe, it's mainly leafleting over there, that are leaflets that are left on tables in
offices and one thing or another. So, you know, if we can get a more robust advert across that side. Thank you.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks very much. I think we just need to remember that this is a snapshot of 1 year. This isn't a historical what it's been. I totally get the point though, but it's made by referral in the main. So if there's no referrals, the definition, the need is maybe less in some of these areas, or previously we've had more referrals. See the chiefs wanting in.
I think for Councillor, the service obviously developed out of its Lockerbie and Annandale base, and we used to stretch it. Part of the procurement process that members will be involved in was shaping the nature of that tender, what we'll be looking for. As you move across the West, because it never existed there has also been alternative arrangements that have been done through other voluntary organisations. So part of this year will be developing the tender to ensure it is a region-wide. However, in the meantime, I will speak to the team about how we can then further promote the service immediately in the West. But so the two-pronged approach will do the promotion, but obviously I think is perhaps engage with members about the shape of the tender before we go out and make sure that those who may wish to bid are fully able and understand what we'll be looking for in the future tender. But we'll get on to the promotion immediately.
Councillor McComb.
Thanks, Leader. Do the two organisations coordinate their work to ensure there is no unnecessary duplication?
The two organisations work very closely together. They offer very different services, but they do work together. For example, the Food Train Extra service, they don't take on any jobs that require a skilled tradesman. They will then refer that on to the handy van for them to do things like small plumbing jobs, putting up shelves, works that basically their volunteers aren't qualified to do. They work very closely together in that, and they cross-refer between the two of them and make sure that where one is more suitable service, they will refer, but not just between themselves. They'll also refer on to any of the other services across the region that people may be eligible for and may benefit from.
Okay. So are we prepared to agree the transfer of 149k to the IJB for the small repairs and home support service, and to transfer 15k to the IJB for the dementia-friendly design project, and to agree to transfer 37,400 to the IJB to fund Food Train Extra? Oh, Councillor Crothers?
I'm just wondering, will we see this here again, or will it just be part of the budget process from here on in? Because it's saying that laws, it's legislation that's actually forcing us to do this.
I think it's been back to us in the past, isn't it?
Thanks, Chair. It comes back to committee on an annual basis for agreement. It's not transferred on a permanent basis because it's the council that holds the budget and it's allocated on an annual basis. So it's important that members retain decision-making powers around the use of that funding. So it comes back annually.
Okay, can we move on to agenda item 12, which is the scrutiny review on grow the local economy through the procurement process. This presents the findings from the Audit, Risk and Scrutiny Committee's review, which considered the topic. It's a useful and comprehensive piece of work for which I thank members of the committee. And can I ask the Chair, Councillor Ian Carruthers, and Vice Chair, Councillor Jane Maitland, to introduce the review and the recommendations, and then we'll debate the report. Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you very much, Leader. My eyes are a wee bit fuzzy today, so I can't read all my notes. I don't know what's going on. Something odd going on there. But anyways, it was a really, really good piece of work. Well, thanks, Graham. I'll try without them. I'll do it off the cuff as best I can. But I know in page 303, we see that the forwards there, that forwards there explains entirely the piece of work and why we undertook it. But going back to, I suppose, more detail, first thing I'll do is actually, which I forgot to do last time until later on, I'll thank everybody involved in some itself. So I'll thank Sheila, I'll thank Andy, and I'll thank Karen in particular, as being the three officers, along with Rona, obviously, who was there. The members of the committee, thank them very much. They put a lot of work and time into this. They really did. Also thank people who came up, including Councillor McClelland, where he was employed at the time. was a great contribution towards the workshops and the actual final recommendations that came, and particularly the small businesses and the larger businesses, actually some of them. So I'll touch a wee bit on that came and gave us a clearer understanding. So it's from a small joinery company with 2 or 3 employees came along, who'd actually had contract with the council, and they really did experience when it went from there to another company we spoke to was £14 million a year turnover. Used to get contracts through the procurement process of the council, no longer gets any. Gave a full explanation. We had a very innovative company that came in that works internationally across the world, but locally based. Gave a good explanation in regards to how they operate and the difficulties they've had in regards to picking up on procurement opportunities based within Dumfries and Galloway Council. So it's contained within the report, the recommendations in particular, the decision that we'll make on back of all the work. So all that information is there without rehearsing it. I think it's, again, building the local economy, or the region's economy, is the #1 priority for Dumfries and Galloway Council. What best way to affect that? It was actually spoken about in an earlier report. One of the members who's left now actually made one of the comments, and it was a comment I very much agree with. If we want to retain young people here, let's create wealth, let's create job opportunities that will keep them here, whether it's at whatever level that is. But the more we pay our people in Dumfries and Galloway residents, the more likelihood is we've got to actually retain it here if we go away, come back and attracting people here. So the recommendations are there, they're quite clear. I'm very, very content with the recommendation. Might be a small alteration, whether we actually look to review it as a full council in a year's time like we did the last one, hear what people are thinking. Happy to take any questions, and quite willing to pass on now to Councillor Maitland.
Councillor Maitland?
Thank you. Yes, this whole exercise is about using council buying power to reinforce and invigorate local business. And we did a lot of extremely detailed work, and we exposed gaps in our own understanding, which actually is why, in many ways, I particularly draw members' attention to recommendations 4, 5, and 6, which are on page 298, as well as everywhere else, I think, 298. Given the amount of money that we spend on commission services, I think we all decided that members' role should be to be rather more explicitly involved in checking performance. How we do this is probably actually up for debate and should go through the committee that is going to do some work on committee structures. But I think now that it's about time that we do consider this very seriously, because the issue is about providing transparency to the world out there, and for us to really know what we are buying with that enormous amount of money. So I know that we have already agreed to reconsider committee structures and schemes of delegation, etc., and I think we should be making certain that that is a piece of work that is done through that committee. Otherwise, I commend it to the members. All these pieces of work, in particular, actually, that we learnt about recommendation 5, where we could maybe claw back some money through early payment, meaning that everybody's a winner. I think that was very useful, if only just to get that. But I do commend to you, Leader, that we have a means by which members can examine commission and procurement of our services and goods.
I think that's a good suggestion. We had some discussion when the committee report came out within the administration group, and I think there was a feeling that we do need to get a better handle on, particularly where people are maybe coming in at a fairly low price, but over the piece the council ends up paying a lot more than they expected, and I think we need to have more of a handle on that. In terms of recommendation 5, some of that work is actually ongoing, and particularly early payment programme came in as part of the budget, and so we are seeing some progress on that, and hopefully which will save us a bit of money, as well as ensuring that businesses get paid nice and promptly. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks. I broadly support the recommendations that are here. In particular, recommendation 1 is a company, well, in my ward there's a company that has moved to a bigger premises, and I know that myself and a number of members across the chambers have been trying to get the council to work with that company, and it has proved a little difficult. There has been slight resistance, and I think that there is a huge role for economic development to play in that, because we need to make sure we retain that company within the region, because they are growing, they're a fairly new company, but also, there's a huge opportunity for the council to use its services. I think as well, in some instances, we have seen in some tenders that have went out, maybe local members across the chamber have asked, how, is it a local company? And actually, there hasn't been capacity within local companies in the region to fulfil that tender, because maybe it's a short period of time and very labour intensive. That business just doesn't have the capacity to deal with. So there's an opportunity there for economic development, and that's why particularly this recommendation one I'm very keen on. There's an opportunity for economic development to actually maybe look to pull some companies together, who could work together and fulfil that tender and generate work for more than one business. I think recommendation 6, I think it's right that we review the scheme of delegation, and we've agreed to do that in an earlier item. I think there's no reason why we can't consider this report in a similar time. But the only thing I would say is that we do have a procurement update that goes to policy resources at present, and I think thinking back to the best value audit report, it did have a recommendation that members and officers should work together in what is reported to committee, and maybe actually there's an update and a report that is already going to committee as a standing item off the top of my head, that we maybe actually need to tease out what further details needs to be in that report, or indeed there needs to be an additional report there. So I think that there is absolutely it's right to review it, but there's maybe other things to consider as well. But on whole, I think it's a fantastic piece of work, and thanks to the committee for doing that.
Councillor Dryburn?
Yeah, thanks very much, Sharon. I understand this is just about the council side of things, but I look at other things that happen around about the UK called, for instance, the Preston model, where we have all the organisations looking at procurement and try to keep them within the region and the spend within the actual region. So I don't know if you maybe it's a question for the chair, is the Preston model also took in colleges, it took in NHS, it took in universities, it took in housing associations, the potential to get that money kept back in the region. Did you consider that, or was it just the council you were actually looking at, considering that we want to be an enabling council?
So I'll try and put this in the best context best way I can, and that you probably relate to this, Archie, with your own ward in particular. So I was certainly getting lobbied as an individual councillor from the south side, you could say, of closer to the English border side, from businesses saying, listen, we need help, but okay, they want to approach into the Carlisle and the Cumbrian side and further and beyond. So that became very much a topic, because actually what we're looking at as a council, so it was allowing, and as the recommendations outlined, what we're looking to develop through the economic development and procurement working closer together, is actually that we can help resource to a degree and help facilitate small to medium-sized enterprises be able to bid out with Dumfries and Galloway. So it wasn't. So did we get right into RSLs and colleges and such like? No, we didn't again doing that degree to that level. We certainly never. So maybe that's something could be considered by, if there's a procurement panel, committee, whatever it may be, ends up after it's been to the review of standing orders committee. That may well be the case, and I think that's where we need the expertise. We need that level of expertise from members of the council. It should be very much a strategic, not getting into the at times it'll get into the nitty-gritty, but predominantly it'll look at the strategic, and when issues like that come up, I think it's absolutely relevant, which we don't really seem to get into, whether it's full council or policy and resources. So that operational level, okay, can we expand and increase kind of benefits in the local economy by working along with the RSLs, the wider partnership, you could say, organisations, to make sure that it wasn't just about keeping it local, it was very much that, keeping it local, but actually how do we help businesses expand their business, grow, and go beyond Dumfries and Galloway, as well as the £240 million that we spend directly. And that became quite noticeable early on, because initially, again, quite a few of the members of the committee thought it was just about what we spend as a council. No, it wasn't about that. And we reached straight away into the economic development. We realised the influence it does have, it could have, but actually let's realise its potential. So I hope that kind of answers your question, Archie.
Councillor Maitland, you wanted to add to it?
Well, I was just going to say very briefly that no, Councillor Driver, we did not indulge in mission creep. So we looked at what we were supposed to look at, which is the council's procurement. I think you're right. I mean, I think there's a role actually maybe in the strategic partnership that we should perhaps look at this, but that is a separate issue. And we did what we were doing with respect to council spend.
Councillor Dempster.
Just an observation, Leader, and I don't want to make anything much of it today, but there's been a madness involved with this council, but especially when it's small issues like changing light bulbs or putting in panes of glass where somebody travels 70 or 80 miles to do it, bypassing maybe 10 small businesses that could actually do that. And I think that was always one of the reasons why this particular paper was requested, just to try and simplify matters for small businesses that don't have the capacity to go through the whole protracted process of filling in the qualifying criteria that the council used to require before they would recognise a business. And if that's what this paper does, then I would certainly welcome that, or if it's a step towards that.
Thanks. Councillor Young.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, a very good policy, Councillor Colour, but if we were to follow this policy, do we not really need to measure how much we currently spend outside this region and then look at trends? And it's not very difficult to, as you say in page 313, to actually identify what is spent on companies out with the region, because some of them may have like care homes operate from within the region. But I think we really need to be able to measure on an ongoing basis how much we spend out with the region to see how successful this will be.
I think that's been one of the challenges, that a lot of the companies that we deal with are registered not here. So therefore you pick them up as where you make your payment. But actually it's very difficult to work out what the presence is here. But actually I think that this differentiation of reporting, actually what we need to do is enable a small and medium business, which is the backbone of our area. So I think in the development of the reporting that we're doing is actually starting to get that granular. The biggest difference we can make is to get more and more of our small businesses connected. Now that may have to come as a premium, because if you think about the NHS, everything's now national procurement. So that they've gone that down the cost route. What members have given us a very strong steer is actually there's more and best value than just cost, and that's very clear from the report. Some of the work we've been doing in restructuring, bringing together a building an economy as a directorate, will actually take us there, the establishment of framework contracts, so therefore the person closest to it in the small business can go and do it. That's all coming to bear, and I think it's just about how we pull all that together for members' oversight is what I think what the chair's been looking for. But I think for me it is about, we're starting to get the analysis on, if it is one contract, a company registered in Glasgow, what's the presence down here? And therefore we'll start to bring that information to you. In particular in the care sector, it's really quite difficult to work out sometimes exactly where that balance lies. But so certainly we'll pull it all together, and I think by the summer we should start to see a much more focused approach to what it is members wish to measure. Because at the moment the procurement reports that come to committee are very, very comprehensive, but clear from this there are several key things that you want reported time and time again, and where we move on it. So we'll bring that report back, and obviously it's up to members to decide what structure that member oversight should take.
And I just think, just to add to that, I think, John, if we do set up a panel, a board, a committee, whatever it may be, they'll actually take that over. These kind of points what you're bringing up, okay, so we currently have a spend, because to me it goes beyond what Gavin's saying even, so we do have, look at it, our data will change over the next few months as we start to collect the data actually. So we've got companies delivering home care homes, so to speak, in Dumfries and Galloway, but we don't count that as part of our internal spend in Dumfries and Galloway, but we employ a lot of local people, but the companies. But going beyond that, I think there's opportunity for companies in Dumfries and Galloway to go away and work elsewhere, and that's the type of thing. So if they're expanding, they're growing their business, so they're working in, whether it's South London, Europe, America, international, or just over the border into Cumbria, how do we record that? How will we go that? I think it's a very important point that you bring up, but we need a specialism, I think, within the members of the council. It's too important, it certainly was my view, and it was the committee's view, too important not to recognise the potential, the different mechanisms the council has and tools to grow the local economy through the procurement service that we have. But that specialism, that whether it's half a dozen or a dozen members of the council really have got an interest and get behind it, look into it, and then they can then recommend, if they recommend to full council, actually changes. This is just a starting point. That's all it is. We just thought it was a good place to be. We could be ahead further on as what we are. So I do think, just to add to what Gavin said there, that this specialist members of the council getting behind it. These are all the questions that will be teased out.
Thank you. Okay. So that's, I think we've considered the findings of the report and thank the members who undertook the work. And we're happy to agree the recommendations. Great, good. Item 13 is notice of motion on transport infrastructure. Members are asked to consider the terms of the notice of motion proposed by Councillor Ros Surtees and seconded by Councillor Tommy Sloan. That's set out in Appendix 1. But before we proceed, are members agreeable to withdrawing from delegation from EEI for Council to consider the motion? Content to do that? Okay, Stephen Herriot and Joseph Coombe are here to assist members if they have any questions on the report. And can I ask Councillor Surtees to move her motion and then Councillor Tommy Sloan to provide his support as seconder. Councillor Surtees.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm very happy to see this motion in front of... I'm very happy to see this motion in front of Council today. And I think the motion set before you speaks for itself in many ways. I would like to add, however, that I would urge that when the letter is written to the Scottish Government, that it's emphasised that the issue of the roads infrastructure in our region is even more pressing due to uncertainty about Brexit and the possible impact, in particular, on the port of Cairnryan. To note that this is the only arterial route that is not dualled, and the roads are known as the goat tracks by people that use it, and that is not good for our region in any sense of the word, and that is Europe and possibly worldwide. The Scottish Government have recognised that there's a need to strengthen the infrastructure in the south of Scotland, and in particular the roads that are mentioned in the motion here. And now I'm asking for action instead of acknowledgement and instead of words. And I would ask that the letter written to the Government actually contains timescales. And that's all I want to say at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Surtees. Councillor Sloan, you...
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'll be very brief. I'm grateful for the opportunity to second what I consider to be a very, very important motion. I've certainly got a feeling of deja vu, because it's actually about 30 years ago since I sat in this chamber asking for the exact same thing, lobbying to government to improve these roads. And as we all know, they've done, I won't say nothing, but little has been done. It appears now the SNP government in Holyrood thinks that the A77 starts at Kilmarnock and goes north, you know, and that the A75 starts somewhere around about Castle Douglas. You know, we need the improvements to come south, to come further south, and they're crucial to the. I'm pleased that we've made contacts with the Irish and Scottish councils that are also be affected, because it's important to us all. You know, but there's also another very important group I'd like us to include, maybe with asking them for a letter of support, and that would be the DUP, who are one of the most powerful political lobby groups in Britain at the moment. Now they have an iron on this fire. It's their country. It's vital to them as well. So I'd ask that we do that, and happy to second.
Thanks. I've got Councillor Giusti and Councillor Scobie wish to speak. Councillor Giusti.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the motion, and I urge that the Council endorses this motion. Our Council needs to show its continued and unwaning support for the campaign for better infrastructure in the South West. The A77 and the A75 and the A76 only account for approximately 0.04% of the total Scottish roads budget. This, in my opinion, is unacceptable, and I wholeheartedly agree with Rose regarding the need for action, and action now in timescales. I agree with that. With Brexit around the corner, here in D&G we have an opportunity. With increased traffic and people travelling through the region, of course there won't be any major works done before Brexit regarding our infrastructure. However, it may be a catalyst for improvements in the future. I'm glad that our colleagues across the water have voted to support lobbying efforts, and their support is greatly appreciated. And I think we should look to our neighbours in Carlisle and down south.
Thank you. So the Borderlands Initiative gives us a way into to get additional support for some of this. In fact, although there's not money in Borderlands for roads improvements, there's not that sort of scale of funding, the sorts of economic development which we hope to achieve through Borderlands can be an additional catalyst for roads improvements, because as our economy picks up, then we need to have the infrastructure that matches that pick up in the economy. Councillor Scobie, Councillor Dempster and Councillor Maitland.
Thank you, Chair, and coming in support of the motion and echoing the sentiments that have already been expressed. What I want to draw members' attention to is the fact that, the SNP Scottish Government put out that they're skint. Well, that's not the case. And if I just give you some examples, where over the last 10 years on capital expenditure on new trunk roads, they've spent £10 billion. In the last 3 years, or at least they're 3 years into a 10-year capital investment plan, spending £3 billion on the dual carriageway programme on the A9 between Perth and Inverness. They are overspent to the tune of £250 million on the Aberdeen City peripheral bypass route, which will bring the budget to over £1 billion spend on a 38-mile road stretch. It will soon be spending over £3 billion on a dual carriageway between Inverness to Aberdeen in the north of Scotland. So the idea that they're skint is just not true in terms of what they're spending. It's just that they're not recognising the forgotten corner of Scotland, being the southwest of Scotland. And as Andrew says, that spend comes into, in the southwest of Scotland, to 0.04, which is abysmal for the Scottish Government not to have invested in the true roads, the two trunk roads of the 77 and the 75. And my fear is that the next tranche of monies from the Scottish Government will go to the A1 to finish the dual carriageway, the trunk road on the A1 from Newcastle to Edinburgh, and we will miss out again. So it's vitally important that we try to influence the National Transport Strategy, NTS2, because that will determine the next 20 years of capital expenditure on our trunk roads. And we've got to be having a real lobbying strategy to make sure that we are at the table and that we are being recognised and know the forgotten corner. Can I maybe turn to the Borderlands Inclusive Growth Deal? And again, I would hope that it does recognise the ports of Cairnryan, that's both P&O and Stena, and reference has been made to the DUP, our Irish colleagues, and how Belfast City Council just within the last month or so passed a motion in support of both the 77 and the 75, and we've got to build on that. But from our borderlands, I think we've got to see a recognition in there, and what I would ask this council to do is to put forward a project. While it will never have the money to actually create a dual carriageway on any of the two roads mentioned, it could raise a project in terms of doing an economic impact assessment that would add to the lobbying strategy and give us the evidence that we need in moving forward and making representation to the Scottish Government. And I had this discussion with Gavin a number of years ago, and there could have been an opportunity in the monies that are coming from the Borderlands Growth Deal. So I hope we do build in an economic impact assessment on these trunk roads and the importance they play to the Scottish economy. Not just the Scottish economy, but our local economy. And could I finish in asking, under 3.9, what progress we have made? I spoke to Archie just before the meeting, and he referred me to the Chief executive to Gavin in terms of the A77 and partnering with our South Ayrshire colleagues to do indeed an effective lobbying campaign, and this also includes our Irish colleagues, where we may, I would hope anyway, that we form that link with our Irish colleagues. So it's to ask Gavin the question whether what progress has been made to approach our South Asia colleagues and Irish colleagues in Northern Ireland.
We'll be meeting with Northern Irish colleagues from St Antrim, looking at May, and I'll be speaking to the Chief Executive following the Northern Irish elections this week. Obviously, they've got a really extreme form of purdah to move from there. I can give members comfort that in speaking to my Irish colleagues, it's not just the DUP, South Antrim as the DP Council, but also has the full support of the Sinn Féin for the 75 in particular. So therefore that'll form part of the political agenda for that meeting. Our first meeting, I invited South Ayrshire to join us, and the Director of Infrastructure came down to join us and will be part of the discussion. So therefore, we're also doing a parallel piece of work with all of the Northern Irish local authorities, which has been facilitated by Councillor Archie. So I think where we are is we're both doing it nationally, and we're going to follow up to nationally, and we've engaged a piece of scoping work of economic potential between Northern Ireland and Dumfries and Galloway, and we're also having an individual discussion with the councils. I will be considering with the Northern Irish colleague whether or not we want to get a representative of Belfast to join us, but there are some political tensions we might not wish to explore in that point. But actually what we're looking to do is build the old partnership that members from the West will remember back from 10, 15 years ago. These were very strong economic partnerships. So certainly that work is underway, and I'd hope at full council in June to update members.
Okay, Councillor Dempster.
Thanks, Leader. I should maybe first of all thank the Stranraer twins for leaving me the opportunity to speak about A76. And I'm grateful to Ross for putting it in the motion, because one of the biggest, if not the biggest, private employer in the whole of Dumfries and Galloway relies on the A76 to get their goods to market. There's about 500 folk reliant on that plant, and if it goes to the wall for any reason, it'd be an unmitigated disaster for Dumfries and Galloway as a whole, in my area in particular. And just to put into context what Willie's saying, there's a 500 metre stretch of the road in the A76 that's been single lane for longer than the time it's taken to build the new fourth crossing. That, in my view, is criminal, absolutely criminal. And it's time that everybody in this council recognise there's a lack of investment in this. The roads infrastructure, the 75, 77, 76, and we need to do something about it. I think as well we've gone asleep to a degree with the A76 Action Group and maybe the development of the A77 Group. And it's nice to see that it moves afoot. And I absolutely welcome the motion that Roz and Tommy have placed before members today. I hope we get unilateral support for it. And hopefully something does come of it, because it's certainly not before time. Thanks, Leader. Thanks.
Councillor Maitland.
Well, you'll certainly get support from this this side of the tracks. I have to say, Leader, that the A75 was referred to during the war when my grandfather inspected civil defences as the goat track. And actually, it's absolutely scandalous that it is still referred to in such terms, so many years later. I agree that the disparity in funding sounds astonishing. I mean, really, actually, scandalous, that level of disparity. I'm really quite astonished that should be the case. The Chief Executive is holding out a kind of candle, I think, in the dark, I hope, in terms of tiny bit of light, that there might be some movement of help from other people, and that's what we've got to work on. Other people's partnerships. So I have no difficulty at all. I'm very happy to do this, and I will actually commend the fact that we don't talk about dualling, which I think is extremely sensible.
Thank you. Councillor Driver.
Yeah, thanks very much. Just to back up what the Chief Exec was saying, I see this as a very important piece of work that's going on between the Northern Ireland Local Government Authority, ourselves, and South Lanarkshire and APSI as well. Yes, sir, sorry. So, I knew it was around there somewhere, but like, my geography's not very good about it. That's why you've got GPS now, like, you know. I did say to Will that we would try and get a meeting as quickly as possible after the initial meeting. However, obviously there's elections going on and things like that. We need to take that into consideration. I also see that from our colleagues across the water, they see Cairnryan as a really important strategic place for them to dock. It's depending on what happens with Brexit, of course, because we're already seeing some movement through Ireland to Northern Ireland and then across to Cairnryan, either to go north where some of their customer base is, but certainly to go south as an opportunity for building their customer base as well. So I as Ian and I, Chair, I've made that a sort of priority of trying to move this forward, and I know it's been, as Tommy says, 30 years in the sort of making to get to this stage, but I hope we can now move forward with all of that support, with all of that information, just to go to the government and say, this is a Scottish Government sort of project that will require funding. I think Borderlands and all that can support that, and also the work that we're doing with the Northern Ireland Local Government Authority as well.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. I appreciate the words, the opportunities of Brexit probably aren't spoken about that often. However, I certainly think that locally, particularly for Stranraer and Cairnryan, that there is the opportunity arising from whatever happens with Brexit, that actually Cairnryan becomes extremely more important asset for our country in terms of trade, and I think it becomes a even more essential for trade for the whole of Scotland. And I would quite like that point to be emphasised in your letter. I think that is an important point to make, and really hones in on why that work is required on both A75 and A77 going forward to support the economy of not just our region but also in the country. I think that Councillor Sloan made a remark about talking to the DUP, and I'm pleased to hear about the work that's going on. But I think it's worth a shot actually, writing to the DUP. I appreciate that meeting with Arlene Foster, you might not find a lot to talk about, but hopefully maybe the A75 and the A77 would be something that could be subject of that type of discussion. I think that at this point actually, nothing should be ruled out in lobbying for the A75 and A77, and indeed our entire trunk road network across the region.
Thank you. I'm sure I could talk to Arlene even if we didn't have many points of agreement. Councillor Nicholson.
Okay, it's just a very short point. There's, I'm speaking from my party. The one thing that has been mentioned a few times is from Andrew and others about Brexit. I wonder if we could maybe add in to the letter something regarding that. There is money that's been passed up from Westminster Parliament to the Scottish Government for mitigation of Brexit, and whether there's any opportunities, maybe get something in there, or get some something positive out of that for our area, because it does link Northern Ireland, it does Cairnryan. So even from a strategic point of view for North Ayrshire and Ayrshire and us, linking to Carlisle. But maybe there's an opportunity in there to get some of that money. I don't know what's happened to that money. It's been passed to the Scottish Government, but it's somehow in the mist somewhere. I don't know where, but it's maybe something we should explore in the letter as well.
I think I'm going to have to listen to the recording of this to put together all the points that people have raised that they think ought to be in the letter, but if we could maybe do that and make sure that all these things are covered properly. Andrew, do you wanted to come back?
Sorry, Leader, it was something that was in my notes that I missed on my opening. Back in November, I believe there was an agreement on one of the items that there was going to be a kind of councillor-led lobby group created between the adjacent local authorities. It's more of a question probably for Archie. I heard him agreeing or giving me a wee humph at the back there. He probably can give a...
Well, I'm quite happy to answer that, Chair. We did write to South Ayrshire Council, and we got a sort of non-descript letter back from them, which is why we then said, let's go the Northern Ireland Local Government, South Ayrshire and Dumfries and Galloway route, and that's probably a better way to go. So there was a sort of a response. Happy to do things in the southwest, but they were more focused on the 77 at that particular time. So I think probably going better having the way we're actually doing now.
Councillor Scobie?
It's just to provide some information, Chair, if you allow me, and Jane referred to her grandfather. This dates back to 1936, when it was first considered in Westminster for the upgrading of the trunk roads, A77, A75. So it goes a lot further back than Tommy's 30. It goes back to 1936. And can I say, and it's interesting what Gavin says in terms of Sinn Féin. What I can tell you, and it's been well published in Facebook social media, that one of our MSPs actually was over in Northern Ireland, and he did meet with DUP members, Sinn Féin members, most political parties over there, businesses and everything, and we got the overwhelming support from the Northern Ireland communities, business and others, in support of having the road upgraded. I think, if we are doing anything with the DUP, it maybe be that we could try and get into the billions that they got and come into a deal with the Tory government and maybe ask them for some of that money to upgrade it, but I'm sure we can think of that in the future.
Councillor Hagman?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think this is absolutely crucial. I'm really thankful to Councillor Surtees for bringing this motion forward and calling for the investment in our road improvements. I think, yep, we absolutely need this. One thing that's not been mentioned, and I don't know if officers are able to update, is we have had the South of Scotland Transport Study that was commissioned by Scottish Government. Do we have any indication of when the results of that may be? Because obviously a transport study has been put forward and we should be including any information from that study. So I'm just wondering, do we have any dates of when we're going to get information? And if we don't, I think it would be prudent to acknowledge that the Scottish Government have looked at this issue and ask them when they will be coming back to us with their plans going forward.
The early indication is that by the end of this year. However, the National Strategic Roads Review has been pushed back a couple of times. I think that in the timescale, if we ask for a timescale, they'll just point us to this. I think the point, perhaps for the leader's letter, is that we expect it to be published by the end and expect the 75, 76 and 77 to have a fair share equivalent to X in it. It's probably the way we'd want to put it. Because otherwise, this review in the past has a habit of slipping several years. So therefore, and I think other pressures come in. So I think the letter should really say, you've already stated that by the end of this year we expect it and expect, and use that language rather than lobby, because I think actually the feeling I get from the members, I'm sure the leader will agree, is that we're beyond lobbying. We expect to receive our fair share of the national infrastructure. And therefore I think it's how we help the leader frame that difficult letter, because at the moment it's sort of towards the end of this year, but that's slipped at least a year, 2 years from when we were promised it previously nationally. So I think if we can have confirmation of that would be absolutely critical. And I think we change the language to expect to see Dumfries and Galloway get its fair share, rather than we ask for it.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think we've considered the terms of motion, and I get the feeling that we're all inclined to agree, and I am charged with writing a letter which I trust people will assist me with, and so a lot of good suggestions about what content should be in that letter. Okay, thank you. Can we now move on to the minutes for approval? Here we go. Okay, we withdrew the minutes of the 28th of February and they're going to come back. Civic Government Licensing Panel, the 22nd of February. Do we have a... Pauline, would you be prepared to propose those? David, if you propose them, David McKee had to leave, so.
Yeah, propose, thanks.
Thank you.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Civic Government Licensing Panel, the 28th of September.
Happy to propose.
Second.
Okay. Pension Subcommittee of the 19th of February.
Happy to propose.
Happy to second.
Social Work Services Committee, 19th of February.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Employment and Appeals of 26th of February. Local Review Body of the 20th of February.
Happy to second the Martha Councillor Blake.
Okay, right, good. Lockerbie and Lochmaven Common Good Subcommittee of the 20th of February. Stephen's just left. Doug?
Yeah, happy to second, yeah.
Can you move it because
Yeah,
Stephen's
I'll move
left?
it, yeah.
Thanks.
Happy to second.
Right, thanks. Allen Common Good Fund.
Move.
Seconded.
Economy, Environment, Infrastructure of 12th of March. And Andrew's...
Happy to second. Happy to second.
Yeah. Wigton Area Committee of the 6th of March.
And I would be delighted to second it.
Good. And we have item 16 is a number of minutes for noting from subcommittees. Item 17, I have not been notified of any urgent business for today. And the next item, can I ask to agree to adopt a resolution to exclude the public from the meeting in terms of section 50A4, paragraph 1 of part 1 of schedule 7A to the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. Thanks.